everyone, and welcome to the Boopcast, episode 16. We are your hosts, SheNoob and...
Cory.
And I realised I forgot to say that last podcast.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I just totally glossed over that part, but welcome. I want to say a few things before we start. One, sorry about the 1 hour delay, but if you follow me on Twitter... you will know that I was up extremely late last night trying to sort out why my Yang reaction video was still blocked after re-uploading. And I was trying to get my lyric video up for the new OP as well, and it's not happening, but that happened to me last year, so I was expecting that. But if you want to watch the lyric video for the Triumph, which is the new Volume 5 OP, it is on my VidMe. You can click the link below the stream. And sorry about my haggard appearance. I'm very, very tired. So I have coffee. Thank you, William. I'm going to tweet that we're live, but... Oh, this week we're talking about the Yang character short and Chapter 1 of Volume 5, because that's finally a thing.
Yay.
Yeah, Cory is quickly watching the RWBY episode, which is the first member exclusive behind the scenes thing that they're doing this volume. So, because he forgot to watch it, so he's going to watch that quickly, and I'm just going to talk while he does it. I'm also going to tweet that we're live. Oh my god, live phone, not love. Honestly. So, it's been an absolute fucking nightmare to get this blocking thing sorted out. People in the Discord were saying that the claimant was a false claimant, but that's actually, it's not a false claimant, it is actually Rooster Teeth, and it is the automated system that's doing it. It's not a manual block. So I'm trying to get that sorted out through the RT Fan Project's email. Unfortunately, when I emailed them the first time, I emailed them the one that I had up that I've since removed, which I regret doing, because now I've got another one up that has no views, but you know, whatever. Yeah, basically, when it first went up, it got blocked by the automated system, so I put in a dispute, like I normally would, but by the time I put the dispute in, the block was removed. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then when the dispute was processed, it got blocked again. So frustrating. I think Larissa from Nerds of Oz said that happened to her before, so... talking about... RWBY 5... I can't believe it's Volume 5 already. Where are the years going?
I know, right?
It's just really surreal that this show has been going for 5 years. That my life has revolved around this show for 5 years, actually.
Yeah.
My life and my YouTube career. I'm actually going to make a video today and post later on my YouTube about some changes I'm going to be making to the uploading of my videos regarding YouTube and VidMe, so... Because, quite frankly, I've had enough of YouTube bullshit. Yeah. So, anyway, let's get on with it, because we have a very, very full podcast to get to today. Because those plebs at Rooster Teeth decided to release everything at the same time, so... Thank you very much, Rooster Teeth. By the way, the intro video is up for everybody on YouTube if you want to aware of that. I'm sure you are. Where's my thingy? There it is. Okay, so... Yeah. We'll start with Volume 5, Chapter 1, because obviously... Oh, wait. No, we'll start with the Yang short, which I apparently didn't take notes on. So, Cory, I hope you've got notes.
Yeah, I've got notes.
Good!
We each forgot something, at least.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in the RWBY thing to take notes on, so that's alright. But I did forget about the Yang short. So, the Yang short... like we suspected, had a flashback element to it. It was set in the past pretty much entirely. Before Yang and RWBY
went to
Beacon. Yeah, so at this point, RWBY hadn't confronted the Roman and his band of useless geeks to meet Professor Ozpin to be accepted into Beacon. So this was before that happened. Yeah, so Yang is trying to teach RWBY hand to hand, and we all saw how bloody useless she is without her scythe in Volume 2, so obviously it didn't make much of an impact on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, RWBY, I mean, Yang talks about in Volume 2 how, RWBY talks about in Volume 1 how she was useless before Crow started teaching her how to use a scythe, which I believe.
I know, right?
She's utterly useless without a weapon, and like for a huntress, it's really like, something she's gonna have to learn how to do, and something Yang's very good at, obviously.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, I mean, it probably comes down to she needs more aura training, is what she needs. Because isn't most hand-to-hand combat, from what we know, just like kind of specialized impacts of aura? Like that's what Ren did against the King Taiji 2 in Volume 1.
I originally thought that what Ren did had something to do with his semblance, but now that we know his semblance is I don't know, I never know what to call his semblance, but basically he can
camouflage.
It's like an emotional cloak, yeah, we'll put it that way, but which is very effective against the Grimm.
Feelings be gone.
Feelings be gone. I know as well that we're not going to have that many viewers today because Arnold is streaming at the same time as we are, so...
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Dang.
he is. I forgot he streams on Wednesday mornings, so we might have a chat about possibly moving the podcast to a Thursday, maybe? We'll have to have a chat about that.
But that's so late.
I know, it's really late, but next week we have to do it on a Thursday morning anyway because of Larissa.
That's true.
So yeah, we'll work that out, but I forgot that Arnold streams on Wednesdays, so I'm like, great, now we're gonna be competing against Arnold. So that's good. I also didn't warn people that this was happening in half an hour because I woke up after 9:30. After 9 o'clock. Oh, if we'd started an hour earlier, we probably would have been alright, but, yeah, Yang Short. So, what am I talking about?
Yes, we do have you, William.
Yes.
Well, the one thing I was wondering about the Yang Short is, do you think it takes place before the Yellow trailer? Because I'm not sure.
No. I think it takes place after the Yellow trailer. And before Chapter 1 of Volume 1. Obviously. But...
yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's after the Yellow trailer. Yeah. I think so. I don't see how... yeah. I'm just gonna go with that.
Yeah, because the other two, it was very obvious they were before their respective trailers.
Yes.
But this is the one that it's like, but is this... like, this one could be anywhere. I mean, like, granted, the time frame is different because we know she's heading off to Beacon. And that, like, in the Yellow trailer, Roman picks up Junior's dudes. So these have to happen fairly close together.
Oh, good point.
Which came first.
That's a good point. No, I think the... maybe the Yellow trailer did come... yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, the Yellow trailer, I think, came first, and then this... and then Chapter 1. Yeah. That makes sense. Because I don't...
William said the opposite.
And I'm pretty sure the Yellow trailer was before... I don't know, the
timeline is a little funky.
It is a little funky, yeah. I saw somebody in a YouTube comment say that the pose that Yang does right at the start is a reference to her pose in the original poster art for RWBY, way back in Volume 1. Hey, we have more viewers. Mage Insanity, thank you for the follow. in Before Yellow Trailer set the day before Ruby Rose. I don't know that it is... I don't think they ever confirmed how far before everything the Yellow Trailer was.
I don't think it was that long.
But it wasn't
because
a
we
day,
saw Roman. It wasn't like a day, yeah, but I don't know. It's just the thing where I the only thing that has me wondering is because in this trailer, I feel like they're on Patch because of what we've seen of Patch. It's lots of trees and clearings and grim.
Yes.
So that maybe this came first, just because then later on they both went into Vale, kind of. Or if they just happen to a lot of times just go and visit Vale, and it's just kind of like a back and forth thing that happens with them.
I'm pretty sure it is Patch. It looks very similar to Chapter 9 of Volume 4 when Yang and Tai were sparring there. But that was next to the house. This looks very similar to that, so I'm pretty sure it is Patch. Some people were saying, why would there be Grim on Patch? It's off the mainland.
Yeah.
Duh.
I mean, Summer's grave is on Patch.
Yeah.
From what we know, and the red trailer takes place on Patch. Like, there are clearly Grim there.
Yeah. I don't think people have made that connection with the red trailer and the grave being on Patch. It's all the same place. So yeah, there are Grim on Patch because it's actually outside the Kingdom of Vale. So, and the things that protect the kingdoms from the Grim are their border defenses and the natural borders as well, like mountains and lakes and oceans and so forth. And Patch is surrounded by water, but it's an island that's outside of the kingdom that doesn't have the natural barriers, doesn't have the protection.
It probably just benefits from the close proximity to the kingdom.
Yeah, probably.
Which is, why Pat... Because I think that didn't Ty say Pat... Or no, it was Crow in one of the things that Patch is a good place to raise a family. So that means that there's probably a fairly good, like, huntsman community on Patch that keeps the Grim fairly in control.
Yeah, Patch is an island.
Or it's just you get the occasional straggler.
It's an island. If you look at the map of Remnant, Patch is a tiny little island, like, just sort of northwest of the mainland of Vale, I think. I think it's northwest, yeah. But you can see it on the map of Remnant. It's actually not that tiny. It's quite a big island, but
I mean,
it's not Australia big, but not Menagerie big. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, Yang and Ruby went to school at Signal, and Signal is on the mainland, so
oh, that's true. So
they would have probably boated to school every day. It seems a little strange that, I don't know. I don't know how that whole thing works with them going to Signal, but, maybe Signal's like a live-in academy, same way Beacon is. But we don't know, because we haven't seen a combat school. We've only seen a Huntsman Academy before, but... Because I doubt they would have boated back and forth every day. They may have perhaps stayed the week and gone home for the weekend, or they may have stayed there during the entire semester. We don't know. Like, we don't have any of those details confirmed. By the way, if you can see paws in the background, it's Kira asleep on my bed.
Oh.
She's moving her paws. She sort of blends in with the cover, and she's doing a lot better. Thank you guys for asking on Twitter how she is. Yeah, no, she's good. Yeah, what? So the Grim in the character short. I didn't know what it was at first, but people are saying it's an Ursa, but it doesn't look like an Ursa to me.
I also was confused at first, but the dead giveaway for that it's an Ursa is its face. Like, it has the little, like, markings and then the circle, and like it's just an Ursa in the new art style, kind of. Yeah. I think is why it looks so weird. But I'm also wondering if it isn't some kind of, like, weird stronger variant because it's so big. Like, we've seen I don't think it's an Ursa Major, William, because the Ursa Major that Jean fought had, like,
spikes,
big spikes coming out of it, and this was this one didn't have massive spikes coming out of it. That's why I'm wondering if it's like maybe this is an Ursa that has had some experience fighting, but it's not quite like, top tier.
Yeah, it has like
Ursa.
on the white bony part on its face, it has these horns on it, and it's just like, I don't know if they just made it look different in the new art style and it's just a regular Ursa, but Ursa Minor. William, the map of Remnant is literally in the very first episode of RWBY. How did you not know it existed? That's my question.
Yeah.
It's literally shown in the very first episode. Yeah, so it's an Ursa, but whether it's just a regular Ursa and they've made it look different because of the new art style. With the Beowulfs in the new art style, they didn't look that different, they just looked better. But the Ursa looks different. So it threw me for 6. I was like, oh, this is some guy number and we haven't seen before. No, it's just an Ursa. And it
kind of threw me too, but like I was still like, no, it has to be an Ursa, just like the way it moves and the way, I didn't catch it until my second watch through of it. Oh, yeah, the ring on its forehead, obviously it's an Ursa, but I was just like, the way it moves, the way it fights, the fact that it's Yang, like they love to have Goldilocks fight bears.
True.
So I was like, this just has to be an Ursa.
True that. Yeah, so the Yang short, the first time I watched it, in my reaction, I was a bit flabbergasted by the short, because it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I think it's a problem, and I've had that problem a lot throughout the beginning of this volume. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, so it sort of took me a minute to take it all in. I did watch it a second time after my reaction, but I didn't during my reaction because I had to immediately react to chapter 1 and it was 2 in the morning. So, yeah, but the animation in the short is really excellent. I think the choreography wasn't that great in some parts. Like, it wasn't, as far as an action-oriented short goes, I don't think it was quite the caliber of the Weiss short. Because the Weiss short choreography was, well, it was really good. Especially for the fact that it was a younger, less experienced Weiss, so I suppose that makes sense for Yang as well, but she wasn't actually that much younger than she was in the first episode of RWBY, and we saw, how she fought then, but obviously it's all animated by different people now. Oh, I just got something in my eye by rubbing it. Good job. Yeah. So in some parts it was really excellent, and it was like fast and what's the word I want? Engaging, but in some parts, fluid and engaging, but in some parts I was like, They have this problem with the animation now where sometimes it's really slow for what's going on. Like, they stand still a bit too long, or they take a bit too long to do an action, and it kind of bothers me a little bit. But it was in the Weiss short as well, like, bit slow in places. But I think if one I had to mention was when she sort of fired those two homing bullets, I suppose. And the dust confuses me in this show.
I mean, William, we have seen Yang fight Ursa's one-on-one before. She actually went 2-on-1 versus an Ursa in the Emerald Forest.
Yes, in episode
4? 4.
4. Yes, episode 4, yeah, she fought a couple of Ursa. Was it 4 or 5?
I think it was 4.
4, yeah, because 3 was the entirely too short one with RWBY and Weiss, yeah. That was like 3 minutes long. Thank God we don't live in those days anymore. We got a 23-minute premiere. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
That was so nice. We'll get to that later. But yeah, apart from that, the Yang short was really good and animated really well. But one thing that keeps popping up as a little bit confusing is when the Ursa grabs Yang in its jaws. And
I know.
we see that aura flash. Originally, I thought it was her aura going down, but somebody pointed out to me that she then used her semblance. So, and people can't actually use their semblance when they have no aura. And some people were saying it's her aura activating for the first time, but I doubt that. She went to a friggin' combat school.
Yeah. Like, it was... Pyrrha was surprised Jean made it to combat school with no aura.
Yeah.
Like, that's... Aura is something you learn in basic combat school.
But, like, I doubt she hadn't unlocked her semblance for the entire, like, however many years she went to Signal for. 4, I think it is. Yeah, I doubt it. So, I don't know, man. I'm too tired this morning.
I just don't understand why she, like, threw herself into the Ursa's mouth. It's like, I get you need him to stop, but, like, why are you... The only thing I can think of is if it was some kind of strategic move to activate her semblance, to, like, take that big hit and then dish it back, kind of. But if so, I'm like, that's so reckless.
Yeah, it was a little weird for me as well, especially the way it was animated, where like she ran and then suddenly she was in its jaws. Like I was like, they skipped something in there in between there. But yeah, it was a little weird, but you know. And the other thing I thought was a little weird was how long she was suspended in the air for after she punched the Ursa's paw. She was up there for ages. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I know. They were doing like
gravity.
A weird kind of like they were doing a weird like Dragon Ball Z like two things punch and it's which will overpower kind of a thing is what they were doing, and it's I agree, like people had this issue in Volume 4 and I to an extent had it too, where, you know, like they're so floaty now. Where like, you know, they can kind of go up in the air and be like, ooh, what's happening? Okay, now we're going in.
Yeah, gravity is the thing. That doesn't seem to work on Remnant since the start of Volume 4 anyway. No, even in Volume 3 they did it a lot. There's like freeze frames of them being in midair, and I just hate those shots actually. There's one in Chapter 1 of Volume 3 with RWBY, and there's another in the funky fight when Yang puts her hands over Flint's trumpet and she's suspended in the air for a couple of seconds, and it looks really weird and not
What
good.
was the one in Episode 1?
She attacks the black-haired guy with the yellow robes, whose name I don't know, with her scythe, and she's kind of in the air for a second, and then she she's like firing, and then I remember that now. That's really awkwardly animated, and like her skirt is all over the place. It was all I could look at during that shot. Blah. Let's not talk about Volume 3's action scenes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's pretend they don't exist. So, and the other thing that annoyed me about this short was that it gave me the impression that, like, okay, Yang is definitely going to find her sister, and then we get to Chapter 1 and it's like, Raven. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Fuck off with Raven.
That's why I was thinking the same thing, because, like, after she has the flashback, she has this look on her face, and she looks kind of guilty. And so I'm like, is she guilty because, like, you know, basically she was being too mopey back on Patch and didn't leave with RWBY to go hunting immediately. But now we know it's probably because of that, and she's not even looking for her right now. She's going to Raven. Like,
I'm so mad at Yang because of this. I'm like, why on God's good remnant would you bloody be looking for your useless ass mother after what Crow told her about Raven? When, like, Raven's like, oh, I saved you once, but don't expect me to do it again. Like, bitch! What kind of a mother are you? Seriously.
I know, right?
I am just not here for Raven. I don't like her as a character. I don't care about her as a character. I don't want more of her this volume. And she's in the fucking intro with Yang, and I hate the way she looks at Yang, and I'm like,
I know,
bitch,
I hate that
I
shot
can't
in
stand
the
you!
intro. I hate that shot in the intro, too, where she has the gall to smile at her.
I know, right? She's such a smug little tart. I just can't stand her. Just what is wrong with her? Seriously, she's such a bitch. I don't like her at all. Like, and I feel like they're gonna set up some stupid redemption arc for Raven that I'm just not about. And
I don't know.
I hope they don't do that, because she's obviously not a good person at all. Like, for goodness sake, she's the leader of a bandit tribe who goes around murdering people for no good reason. But anyway, we'll get to that a bit later. I'm not about Raven this volume. She's in the poster as well, which makes me think, like, great, Raven overload. Hey Jozo, yeah, she's a smug little tart. I can't see the chat because my notes are in the way. I should probably fix that. I just don't like her. She's just such a tart, and like something's seriously wrong with Raven's brain. I think she's just, the way everything she says and the way she thinks about the world, and like, oh, the weak die and the strong live. Oh, the rules are I save my own daughter one time and that's it, and then I don't give a shit. And also she lost her arm and I still don't give a shit, and I want to change the subject. But I crap on about family and like, why can't I just catch up with my brother and blah blah blah. I'm like, I hate you. Stop talking. Oh, I could go on forever about how much I don't like Raven, but you know, I won't.
I don't know. I'm excited to see Raven this volume though, because I think she holds a lot of information that we want, and at the same time, like, also she is such a weird, confusing character right now that I want to. The more we see her, the more they have to like kind of define her, sort of, and that'll make it easier to understand Raven. Because right now it's like, what is happening?
Yeah, I was gonna at NYCC. No, not NYCC. RTX London. We should talk about that.
I have no information about that.
Well, I watched the RWBY panel. I should have linked you to it. I forgot to. At the RWBY panel there, Miles, they were asked the question, who's the hardest character to write for? And they said somebody else who I don't remember, but Miles said Raven because she's really complicated. And I'm just thinking, great, they're going to set up this dumb redemption arc, and I'm going to hate it, and I'm still not going to like her. It's not going to make me sympathize with her because I don't like her as a person. And, like, I'm just not about Raven. Yeah, exactly. That's Crow said. It's annoying how you go on about family, but act like your own daughter doesn't exist. Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is your deal? I don't care, but I want to know. Because I'm curious why you're such a bloody bitch. Hey, Deserac.
Hey, Deserac.
So yeah, anyway, I think that pretty much covers the Yang short. We're already talking about chapter 1 anyway, so let's just jump right into it.
Yeah. The only thing I did want to say about the Yang character short was that when after the fight ended and Yang was leaning us that tree, the way RWBY ran at her was the animation was so good.
It was so good. I know. I thought that myself when I watched it the second time, actually, because I didn't know it was the first time. I'm saying hi to that hunky with rude, Deserac.
Thank you, Deserac.
God, you're such a slut.
How dare you?
How dare you?
I'm a victim.
I'm a victim.
Okay, nope, we're not getting sidetracked with
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that the second time I watched it, I went, that animation looks fantastic. Like, because the running in Volume 4 was questionable at the best of times. But so far, what we've seen of running in Volume 5, it looks so much better. I don't know what happened, but they figured it out. Finally. I'm so glad they figured it out. Even in Volume 3, I know it was all like a different program and it's, you know, but even in Volume 3, the running was like, still doesn't look like human beings. Looks more like robots, but you know. One of Raven's moral standards are interesting, yeah. Yeah. Let's just stop talking about Raymond, because I could go on forever. I really could. Yeah, I just want to know what happened with Team Stark. Tesseract's being filthy right now. Cory is uncomfortable.
I don't know what to do.
Oh man. Yeah. Let's stop getting sidetracked here. Desiree, stop sidetracking the podcast. Derailing the podcast. Yeah. So, let's go back to the beginning here.
They are, William, they are.
I was a little, the whole time I was watching Chapter 1 in my reaction, I was trying to keep up with what was going on, and I could not. But, I was jarred by the fact that they started us literally right in the action. So, the first thing we see is a black screen, and we hear Crow talking, and, straight in with it. But there's a really, really short Ranger scene, and then it transitions straight into Weiss. But the first two things I noticed were that the lighting and shadows look amazing compared to Volume 4. Volume 4, they needed work. Volume 5, they look so good. They're so much more realistic. The only issue I've had with the lighting is I noticed in the Weiss character short that when she's standing looking at the statue, she's lit from the front. And then when she turns her head around to face the camera, her face is lit. So I'm like, but the light is over there, so her face technically should be in shadow, but that was the only thing that bothered me. They still have some work to do as far as light sources are concerned, and like where the light is coming from, where the shadows should be cast. But that, oh my god, compared to Volume 1 through 3, they look phenomenal. And it makes the show look so much less flat, more three-dimensional, and more realistic. And like, yeah.
I mean, I noticed it in the Yang trailer, which granted, it's easier to light for daytime scenes than it is for like nighttime stuff. But yeah, the shadows in the Yang short were very good.
They were very good, yeah. Hey Larissa, welcome. Yeah, like I did notice, because the Weiss character short was the first one we saw and it was set at night, that the shadows and lighting at night have improved immensely. They were not very good in Volume 4. Night is difficult though, especially when, like, the moon on Remnant is very, very bright, because it's a big moon. So it's a little, like, it kind of messes with our sense of reality of how light works at night, because the moon is such a bright source of light, whereas our own moon is sometimes bright and sometimes not. But the moon on Remnant doesn't seem to go through phases, really, so which is interesting. But
yeah, we said that earlier to John Bat.
We think it's a Grim.
We thought it was an Ursa.
We think it's a Grim. We think it's an Ursa. Yeah.
Just because it had the forehead circle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they've just made it look, I guess, better. It just looks weird to me still, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. Yeah, so lighting looks awesome. I loved the 2D shots of the crowds and that in Mistral, but it kind of screamed to me cutting animation corners just a little bit. But I can forgive them because there are so many people in those 2D shots. I'm like, animating that in 3D would have been a fucking nightmare and would have taken away from stuff that was more important. So I'm like, yep, I like the 2D shots. Good move putting it in there while Crow was talking, because we have something pretty to look at. Also, they're gorgeous. They're gorgeously drawn.
The only reason I didn't have an issue with it was because, like, the scene where they were looking out over all of Mistral was that that was a 2D shot, and granted, they were 3D in the forefront, but the background was 2D. Yeah,
it was, so it was all matte. Yeah, matte.
It kind of transitioned, sort of, so I didn't think it was that weird.
The only reason I thought it was weird is because, I guess I was expecting the same as what we got in Menagerie, which was a bustling, thriving town full of 3D animated people, and then we got 2D shots, and I was like, okay. But in retrospect,
we probably
I understand why. Yeah.
We probably got that because people hated that menagerie episode, probably for that reason, is because they wanted to show us the bustling town. And if they had just done the 2D shots, we might have had more in
Obviously,
there. So maybe that's what they did.
Yeah, they decided to go with the because we're spending a lot of time in menagerie, they had to do 3D crowds, and like they had to give us a sense of just how crowded menagerie is. But Mistral is not on the same level as that, so the 2D matte paintings work really well.
How did you not notice the same-sex couple?
How did you not notice? I thought it was so cute.
They were holding the little... I did too. I literally, in my reaction, went, "Aww."
I know,
there's a little heart flower.
So the second to last 2D shot that we see, is it second to last or is it the last? No,
I think
it's the last one.
Last.
It's the last one. There's a blonde man and a dark-haired man, and the dark-haired man is holding a pot with bamboo in it that's in the shape of a love heart, and the blonde-haired man has his arm around his shoulders. So they're obviously a gay couple, and it's really cute. And finally, LGBT representation in RWBY, even if it's that small little thing, now we know that it is a thing in Remnant. There are LGBT couples, and there are LGBT people. And it's just good to know.
I do just want to get up on my soapbox for just a second and say that I'm glad that they did this, but I don't want... They still need to, like... It doesn't count as representation, like, within the cast, kind of.
No!
It's good to know within the, like... within the world, it's good to know that it's there. But
they're
like,
not walking, talking characters. I'm not gonna,
like, if that's
that have personalities.
But if like that's all we get, it's kind of.
Oh, that won't be all we'll get.
I think.
That won't be all
so
we'll get. Don't worry. Yeah, no,
I'm glad they're doing it, but like, keep going.
No, they definitely. That is not all we'll get. I definitely feel like there are going to be characters that are LGBT, that are walking, talking people with personalities and voice actors. But for now, this is them. For now, this is them answering that question they get all the time. Every time there's an RGX, every time there's a convention, are you going to have LGBT representation? And this is them saying yes. In Remnant, there are LGBT people. There are people in same-sex couples. We'll get to that. Just give us a minute. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
This is confirmation that in Remnant this is a thing. And then I
honestly,
feel like they'll get to it.
Mistral's the best place to introduce them, just because of what we know about the culture, sort of. It seems like the best place, probably, or at least a fairly accepting place.
I feel like
guess.
Mistral and Vacuo both would be.
I feel like
similar.
Atlas is the one place it's going to be a little bit like, maybe not.
Well, I mean, Atlas still don't accept the faunus. They're probably not going to accept gay people, are they? But, maybe they think differently about that in Remnant. I certainly hope they do, because humanity has a long way to go. Don't mind me eating a banana, by the way. I'm starving. Eating on a podcast is really professional. Yeah, like, I prefer them to do these sort of representative things very subtly. Like, you don't want to come across a character, like Deseret just said, and the main thing about them is that they are gay or a lesbian, or whatever. You just want it to just kind of be there without you even realizing that it's there. You know what I mean? Like, because it feels more real, and it feels more like it's less of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to introduce it into the main cast without making it a big deal, like how the Legend of Korra dealt with Korra and Asami getting together, and they were held back by a mainstream studio, whereas so the best that they could have them do is hold hands, whereas in this they could actually like do more with that. Yeah, but it is still a thing where like. All it takes is, like, if it's someone within the cast, like, it just has to come down to they meet a character, and it turns out that character is their ex-girlfriend or their ex-boyfriend or whatever. And, like, that's all it... that would all it take without, like, it take one line, confirm it's there, and they, like... It doesn't even take, like, oh, they have to make out on screen. It's just one line, and you can... change so much.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
But also not change at all.
Yes, Chose, I am channeling, son. So, good thing bananas are quick to eat. What was I going to say? I don't know about you, but when I saw the Spring Maiden in the intro, or who we think is the Spring Maiden, I took
You didn't even notice until I told you.
Yeah, until I took one look at her and went, she looks like a lesbian to me. And I don't know if that's really stereotypical of me, but I was like, I'm not so sure that she's heterosexual. But I feel like because she is the Spring Maiden, they're going to ignore all of that sort of sexuality-related stuff, because she is such an important part of the volume.
Yeah. I know. I feel like it just... Her look was very just like Combat Bandit to me, kind of.
Yeah, and that's true.
So.
It is very much Combat Bandit. You right there, Shakira?
Oh.
She's just moving around.
Moving around.
Yeah, so... Yeah, a female with a boyish look, exactly, yeah. She really reminded me of a character from another show, but I can't think of who it is at the moment. It'll come to me. So yeah, the short ranger scene, and then we have a transition into Weiss. I wasn't a fan of this transition the first time I saw it, mainly because I wasn't actually ready for it, but it is a really good way to transition a scene.
Yeah, in retrospect, it is a fairly great way to do it.
It is pretty awesome. But also because, like, the first ranger scene was so short, I wasn't expecting...
It was surprising.
Weiss. Yeah, I wasn't expecting Weiss so soon. I thought, like, okay, here's the reset up with Ranger, here we go, and then boom, Weiss, and I was like, excuse me, what? I am not... I haven't caught up yet.
The transition was, Crow was talking about the higher up you go, the more, like, I don't know, powerful, or... He said something about, like, the higher up you go in Mistral. Yeah. The nicer it gets, and then Nora says, "Good thing we're going up," and then the camera pans.
We are going up, and then it goes up, and then fades into the lake with the airship. Yeah, and I think the thing that made it was the lens flare when the lake first appeared and the sun was reflecting off the lake. The lens flare was like, it just reminded me so much of like a Stevie Spielberg sort of sci-fi movie kind of transition, and I was like, yeah, that's actually really cool. When you're ready for it, when you're not ready for it, you're like, whoa, hang on, Weiss, what? I was so weird in my reaction because I could not keep up with what was happening, and the show has a different feel to it this volume. I really felt like Chapter 1 had a very different feel. But in a good way, I think. I was at first, I was like, I'm so overwhelmed by everything. But then I was like, yeah, no, this is actually a really good, a step in the right direction as far as the feel and the tone of the show is concerned. Weiss scene. So first thing I noticed was the awesome lighting in this scene of the sun coming through the windshield of the airship and having the shadow, then sun, then shadow with Weiss in the background. I was like, that is fabulous. Because if that was a scene in volume 1, 2, or 3, that would have just been like, you know, flat lit.
Flat light.
Flat light, exactly. But when you've got lighting like that, it makes the scene so much more dynamic, and especially like, because just above her eyes is in shadow, and then halfway down her legs down is in shadow, and it just gives the scene mood, it gives it tone, and it just makes it feel that much more real when you have realistic lighting like that. It's so good, it looks amazing. I just love the way that was lit. And it sort of, it helps with your sense of believing what you're seeing if it's lit, you know, properly. Like, you go, yes, okay, they're on an airship. Whereas if the lighting looked really weird, you'd be like, oof. And I had that throughout many moments in volumes 1 to 3 where I was like, yeah, this should not be lit like that. But they have found the formula, definitely. So there was a mayday while they were on the ship. a passenger ship whose huntress had been taken down by the Grimm. Now, Weiss was obviously keen on helping them, but the airship pilot was not. I was going to say driver. The airship pilot was not, for obvious reasons. Do we think this is going to be a thing next chapter, or is this just a throwaway?
No, I think it will be based on the stuff we've seen from the trailer. Like, there's clearly an airship fight with over the lake, which I don't know if you caught. He called it Lake Monsu.
Lake Monsu, yeah.
There's going to be a fight in an airship over Lake Monsu, and Weiss is involved in it. So I think it's probably going to happen in the next volume, God, I hope not in the next
chapter, please. Yeah, I'm not sure about the next chapter because they showed everybody in chapter 1, so it would make sense for that to be in chapter 2. I would like it to be no later than chapter 2. I don't know what they're going to show in chapter 2. I think before we have seen because everybody was shown in chapter 1, everyone except the villains, I might add, was shown in
I was
chapter
wondering
1.
Too. That was the one thing I was wondering is, like, where was Cinder?
So I reckon,
she's on our poster, but not in episode 1.
Yeah, I reckon chapter 2 is going to start with the villains, but anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. Now, Weiss's expressions in the scene were so good, so well animated. When she's listening to the distress call and she's kind of looking up the way people do when they listen, and her eyebrows, the way her eyes were moving, her mouth, like, I was like, oh, this looks so good. The expressions just get better every volume. I don't know how they put so much expression onto a face that doesn't actually have that much to work with as far as expression is concerned, because they can only do so much with the way the faces are designed. But her expressions are just like, and the way she says, "But they'll die," and I'm like, oh my gosh,
I thought that too.
You poor baby.
Like, she was so perplexed as to, like, why this guy would just let these people die.
Yeah,
like, she was just flabbergasted. She was just like, but they'll die. Like, and she was just like, you don't care?
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like she levels with him on the one hand, but on the other hand, she is a huntress and she is sworn to protect people from the Grimm. So hearing that these people are being attacked by the Grimm and not being able to help them is probably killing her. And, like, I feel like Weiss has had so much character development that has been so wonderful to watch for her as a person throughout, from volume 1 to now. I feel like she's had the most development of any of the characters in the show. And she is a different person than she was when we met her in volume 1, chapter 2. Episode 2.
Yes.
I keep saying chapter 2, but the chapters were split in half, so technically it was
chapter 2. It was chapter 2 because we got all of chapter 1 in one go.
Chapter 2, episode 3, yeah. Episode 2, fuck! Yeah, so I just, like, Weiss is just, she's my favourite, she'll always be my favourite, but, just the way that Kara has been voicing her as well has been just so good. She's gone from a really whiny, really annoying, really bitchy character to who she is now. She's kind of warm-hearted and soft-spoken and,
Yeah, I was gonna say soft-spoken was the first word that came to mind.
But they'll die. And I was like, when I heard that line, I was like, oh my gosh, that is the best thing Kara has ever said as Weiss, ever and ever will be. Because it just sounds so genuine, I think is the thing. We, like, originally when we met Weiss, we didn't think of her as a very genuine person. But obviously she was putting up a front and kind of hiding who she actually is. And I feel like her journey has helped her discover herself. And, like, the Weiss character short, the song talks about her not knowing who she is because she is forced to be this, other person almost. Like, there was a lot of pressure placed on her being the heiress to the SheNoob Dust Company and having so much expected of her that she never really got to find out who she was. But now it's very clear to her who she is and who she is supposed to be. And she's so much more a genuine character for it. Weiss has come down tonally since Volume 1, yeah. RWBY has started down that road, but RWBY is a cinnamon roll, so, like, I feel like she's always going to be a little bit naive, and she's an optimist as well, so no matter how bad things get, RWBY is always going to manage to be like, everything's going to be okay. I mean, she watched Pyrrha die, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and I don't know, I kind of feel like William said earlier that it kind of feels like Weiss is the main character for how much she's developed. But I feel like it's because a lot of RWBY's development is going to come from having to deal with her new power and also all the loss that's going to happen around her. Because they've clearly set her up to be not just a leader of Team RWBY, but like a bigger leader, kind of. Like the leader of the Force against Salem, almost, is what I feel like they're kind of going for. And I feel like that's when we're going to get a lot of RWBY's character development, is because she's going to have to deal with all of this pressure and weight and responsibility. And it's just, that's when she's going to get the chance to grow.
I feel like a lot of us forget, too, that RWBY's actually 2 years younger than the rest of the main characters. And, like, of course she's going to be naive and a little bit childish at times, and optimistic, because, you know, wisdom comes with age, or bloody cynicism comes with age. She's not cynical. Blake is definitely cynical, and Yang is even a little bit cynical. Weiss, maybe she's cynical, but for different reasons. But RWBY is an optimist.
With Yang, I think it was like Yang was this really good blend of optimism and cynicism, kind of, because, like, you know, she did still have RWBY, this super, like, positive, everything's gonna be okay, like, thing going on, but then she also had, like, the world is dark.
Yeah.
Going on. And I think that one of the things that happened was, as we saw at the end of Volume 3, like,
let's not talk
you know,
about that.
bad things just happen sometimes. Like, there doesn't have to be a reason. And, like, I think it's kind of been like she had to break a little bit so she could get a little bit more optimistic about things.
Yeah. And Crow said that to her as well. Sometimes bad things just happen. And she learned it the hard way. Sometimes bad things happen, and there's not necessarily a reason why. RWBY's the only non-cynicist in the group. Yeah, I feel like all of them are cynical for different reasons. They've had very different journeys. And, I want to talk about the score in this scene as well, because I really loved the score. It was almost Path to Isolation, but not quite. Like, you could hear the leitmotif in there, but they played with it. And it was just a really nice score for the scene. I really liked it. Yeah, that scene with Weiss was fabulous. I'm sad that that's all we saw of her in the first chapter, but I feel like the whole night summoning bug grim fighting thing will be next chapter, and that will be our bulk of Weiss for the time being.
Because we also need to know where Weiss is kind of going.
Yeah.
Because, like, we know she wants to meet up with Winter and everything, but right now, like, we kind of have... It's sort of a thing where, like, RWBY and Yang have clear objectives right now. And Blake has something that's about to happen, but I think that is going to change her objective. So I feel like that'll be... So I feel like Weiss and Blake will be kind of big focuses of the next 2 episodes to get their stories moving kind of in their volume direction. And then we'll kind of, you know, bring more stuff in.
Yeah. I am very hopeful for the pacing of this volume, because the first chapter was paced really, really well compared to all of Volume 4. The only chapters in Volume 4 I felt were paced really well was Chapter 1, but even then that had a couple of issues. Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 and the finale. Those were the only ones that were really paced quite well. The rest was like we're not getting enough Yang, there's too much Blake, what the fuck was happening with chapter 5? Like, a 9-minute episode that's all in menagerie, like, really? You could have put more Yang in there, seriously? We talked about that.
And then episode 8, the 20-minute exposition
Oh
bullshit.
my gosh, yes, it's so boring! Like, the first time you watch it, you're like, okay, this is interesting, but it gets old the second time you watch it. And it's
I know. Since you now know the information, you're just like, ugh. Like,
I literally
really?
fast
Could we
forward
just...
that part. I'm like, skip! I wanted to skip it so bad during my RWBY-thon. I was like, I literally said to people, okay, here comes the exposition. Go, like, this is your break time. Off you go. You already know this. Goodbye. See you later. This is boring. There's, like, literally, like, friggin'... There's the scene at the campfire, and then there's the story about all the gods, and then more campfire, and then there's something else, Blake, and then there's more campfire. And I'm like, ugh! This entire episode is the screen whore, and then a campfire. I cannot! But anyway, yeah, chapter 1 looking very promising, and the fact that they have 2 extra chapters to deal with more stuff, I'm like, okay, hopefully the pacing, they're gonna more or less get it right this volume. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So, moving on to the next Ranger scene, obviously chapter 1...
There was a few things that I noticed in the, or a few things that, well, one thing, he said that Weiss has money, and I was confused. I was like, how did she escape with money, kind of?
She must have just, like, she
just, like, grab some stuff and she pawned him off, and then, like...
Well, because we saw her pay him at the end of Volume 4, but either she had her own personal stash, she stole it from her father, or, like, you know, I suppose we're just supposed to assume that the Schnee family mansion is just full of money. They're very, very rich people. I'm sure they have millions stashed away in certain places, you know, in case of apocalypses or wars or something like that.
But then
I wonder if the apocalypse is even a concept for them. Or are they more worried about Grimm and Civil War?
Yeah, I think that they're more worried about another world war. That would be the apocalypse for them.
Yeah, another great war. Yeah.
But then the other thing I noticed is he said that there's been a lot of air traffic near North Anima, which is... So I'm wondering, especially with what Lionheart says in the following scene, or maybe it's the scene after, but he says that basically the council is using the Huntsman right now as kind of sort of like they're preparing for war. They don't know what's happening with Atlas. So I can't help but wonder, I'm like, there's a lot of air traffic there because Mistral is preparing for war with Atlas.
Now, I don't know if you know the answer, but can you remind me, as far as the Great War is concerned, I know there was a World Remnant on it, but I haven't had time to look at it again. It was Atlas and Mistral versus Vale and Vacuo, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So now it's interesting to me that Mistral and Atlas are actually at odds with each other. Because of the dust embargo and the border closing and all of that crap that's going on. Mistral's obviously not too pleased about it. So I feel like the dynamics have shifted a lot since the last Great War. So now we're looking at Mistral and Vale versus Atlas and Vacuo almost. Or like everybody versus Atlas even. Or Vacuo's just kind of not even gonna like bother. Excuse me, because we haven't even been to Vacuo yet, so we don't know what the dynamics are like in Vacuo right now. Yeah, so I feel like at the moment it's Mistral and Vale versus Atlas. Or more Mistral versus Atlas than Vale, because Vale's got their own problems right now. And they're just focused on trying to rebuild what's left. But they've lost their Huntsman Academy, they've lost Ozpin, they've lost all of their training huntsmen and huntresses, so they're sort of in up shit creek without a paddle right now. And it's the dynamics are more about Mistral's pissed off at Atlas because of all this crap they're pulling. And Leo talks about Ironwood as well. But yeah.
I feel like they're the two that make the most sense to be at each other's throats because they were friends, and now Atlas is closing themselves off to the world.
Yeah.
And so they'd be like, "Listen, we were friends. Where are you going?" Kind of.
Like,
and
what's your
also
deal?
from what we know is like, I mean, right now Vale's in such shambles that you know, whatever. But it sounds Vacuo had their own like supply of dust, kind of. So, like, Vacuo's okay. Like, the dust embargo will probably hurt Vacuo a little, but not as much as it will hurt
Mistral,
because Mistral doesn't really have a lot.
Mistral
or if it
relies
did,
on Atlas, for probably dust and also protection, I imagine, as well. Mistral isn't a place where I see a lot of, like, soldiers being trained, and that sort of protection comes from Atlas for them. And because they were partners in the Great War, I feel like they don't anymore, a real, like, understanding between each other, and that Atlas is going to provide Mistral with dust and soldiers and weapons, and Mistral's going to provide them with food and you know, stuff like that. And, like, there's a back and forth going on there that the dynamic is not there now. And Mistral's like, well, excuse me, what the hell? Understandably. But yeah, the Ranger scene, they finally have made it to Haven Academy. And, but there's nobody there.
Yeah. Well,
God damn it.
One thing I thought about Haven Academy when we first saw it was I was like, does this look like a place where you would train Pokemon trainers? Because I feel like it looks like a place you train Pokemon trainers.
I'm actually a huge fan of the real, like, Asian sort of architecture that's going on in Mistral. I feel like they're using a lot of references from actual cultures on our own planet to shape the style of every area of Remnant. Like, Vale was very sort of I don't want to say Victorian, but it's real English sort of architecture, you know, sort of...
it was kind of cyberpunky.
Yeah, it was very
too.
cyberpunky, because it was like... the buildings actually reminded me a lot of the buildings that you would see here in, like, Adelaide, like the old buildings in the city. We still have, you know, heritage-listed buildings that were built when like, settlers first came to Australia from England and built these stone buildings. And, like, I live in a stone building that was built by those people. And, Vale really reminded me of all that sort of architecture that I see here. But then there was...
It reminded me of, like, those kind of, like old English,
yeah, exactly,
you know,
yeah.
brownstones and stuff. And yeah, cyberpunk, as William said, cyberpunky is, like, heavily Victorian England inspired. So it's kind of... kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, but then there's, like, the technological aspect of, like, there's cars and, you know, all these modern things, and it really gave Vale its own flavour. But then we get to somewhere like Menagerie, where it's definitely more, like, tropical, and I couldn't really put my finger on the architecture. It's almost Asian. It's kind of Asian, but it actually reminded me of Bali, strangely. That sort of, like, sort of Indonesian style architecture, but then Mistral is more like sort of
just straight up Asian
like,
culture.
Yeah, Asian
feudal Japan
architecture. Yeah, exactly. And then Atlas, we haven't seen that much of.
We haven't really seen much of. All that we've seen is, you know,
Schnee family home.
Glamour.
Yeah, but I imagine it's very. It's just like a big modern city, I imagine.
I imagine it's probably pretty Russian inspired.
You think?
Well, I mean, just everything we know about Atlas is, like, you know, I mean, they had, like, pseudo-communism. It's a snowy place, and it's just the little, like, the cultural things that we know about Atlas are very Russian. So I feel like that's probably what they'll kind of go in that direction with it.
Yeah, I feel Remnant is the Russia and Germany. Atlas is the Russia and Germany of Remnant. Definitely. Menagerie's the Australia. But yeah.
And then we don't really know anything about Vacuo.
No, not really.
It's desert. It's hot.
I feel like Vacuo is going to be a little like Egypt. We're going to see a lot of like African
We did see that when they showed the places during the Vital Festival. Like there was the
yes, we did.
Kind of outback feel
A
that
caravan
they had going on there.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah, Vacuo, well, we already know it's deserty, so it's probably going to have a very Northeast African feel, Egyptian feel about it, but just in a modern setting. Yeah, so Haven Academy's deserted, and Crow is immediately like, what the heck is going on here? There should be people guarding this relic that's supposedly really important. What I liked here when they got there is that Ruby kind of went to wipe her eye, and Jean put his hand on her shoulder, and it was like, for me, it was a callback to their conversation in 410 about how, like, Jean said, you gave us the courage to follow you. Like, we followed you because we wanted to follow you, and because you were so determined to do this and to help people, and they've finally made it there. And he sort of put a reassuring hand on her shoulder, like, you did it, you got us.
We all made it.
Yeah, we made it. We made it. We're all alive. We all got here, and it was because you had the courage to lead us. So when they meet Lionheart, something weird I noticed about the shots where they're all screaming at each other is that Ren's mouth barely opens and his expression does not change. Whereas everyone else is like, ah! He's just like, it's so weird. I'm like, I couldn't even hear him above Nora, Ruby, and Jean screaming either. I'm not even sure he made a sound. Like, I'm sure he did, but I cannot hear it.
Or maybe he's just one of those people who he's like a kind of a scared person.
Yeah, but I'm like, for God's sake, Ren, show some goddamn expression. And I loved Nora's expression after Crow and Lionheart both fell over. She was like... It was a hilarious expression. She always raises one eyebrow and it looks really funny. Lionheart definitely strikes me as a cowardly lion.
Yeah, definitely.
He, like, just the way he even reacted, like, oh, you almost scared me half to death. I'm like, calm the hell down, man. And I also want to know what the heck he is playing at, because I cannot figure him out. I cannot figure him out if he's just, if he's being blackmailed by Watts, if he's just going along with it because he's too much of a coward. Is it like, does he think it's totally hopeless, so he's not even going to bother? I don't know what he's playing at, but he's an idiot.
The only thing about that I thought, because I didn't notice this on my first time through, but my second time through, when Crow said that, you know, he filled the kids in on what was happening, he kind of had this like, oh, kind of look, and I was like, he's like planning something, and I don't think that he's planning something evil with these kids. I think he's planning something that might save him involving these kids, or save Haven involving these kids.
I hope so. I hope he's not just going to bend over for fucking Salem and her crew, because that's going to make me really annoyed. Obviously, he's not inherently as courageous as people like Ozpin or Crow, or even Ironwood. I would describe Ironwood as courageous. I just feel like he makes poor decisions.
Yeah, I love the line he said later, where I don't know what happened to him in Vale, but it worsened some of James's more unfortunate tendencies. Yeah. And I was like, yes, because James took the wrong lessons from what happened in Vale.
And yeah, the whole dynamic between James and Ozpin in volumes 2 and 3 was so frustrating to me, because James, obviously Ozpin, there's more to him than we ever thought there was, because now we know that he and Oscar are essentially the same person, and like Ozpin talks about
and Ozpin went through it.
Going through the same thing, exactly. And so obviously the wizard, who he is a very, very old person whose consciousness is transferred down similarly to the maidens, but instead of power, it's consciousness. And knowledge and experience and that kind of thing. So obviously Ozpin has been around for a long time in different forms. And James, whether he knows that or not, he would, you know, he would just refuse to trust Ozpin. And to be fair, it did all backfire in the end, and Vale did fall because Ozpin sort of sat there with his thumb up his arse. But I feel like...
But James also didn't help the situation.
No, he did not help the situation at all. In fact, he probably made it worse, if anything.
Yeah.
But... excuse me. He kept saying to Ozpin, you have to trust me. And I'm like, but you're not trusting him! Seriously! Like, James has got serious trust issues. And I'm like, dude, how do you expect somebody to trust you if you won't trust them? And obviously Oz knows better than you.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is he even kind of pulled this with Jacques a little bit, I know better than you. Yeah. He's kind of narcissistic and airheaded, where he's just like, I know what to do, I will get us through this. If I know it needs to be done, I will do it, blah, blah, blah. And it's, you know, so much like, no, you're you know, by you assuming power, you're actually making things worse, not better.
Exactly, he's making it worse. And I feel like he's afraid. He's afraid of another Great War. He's afraid of what will happen if Salem wins. And that fear is driving him to make the wrong decisions. Whereas with Ozpin and the rest of them, they were trying to do the best that they could to make sure that this didn't happen. And Ironwood, I feel like, also wants that, but his fear is clouding his judgment. And I don't think he's inherently a bad person. I just feel like he is scared, and it's making him just not think about, you know, he wants what is best for his kingdom and his people, and that is the main focus in his mind, but he's not thinking about how it's going to affect the rest of Remnant.
Well, I think you're kind of on the right track, because in the actual story of the Wizard of Oz, isn't the gift that the wizard gives the Tin Man, who's Ironwood, isn't he the one that receives the heart?
Yes, and the Scarecrow has the brain, and
yeah. So that's why I'm wondering if maybe it's like he's kind of sort of almost lacking compassion, sort of, or
I don't know that he's lacking
feels...
compassion. I feel like he's lacking empathy.
Yeah, or maybe it's just sort of a thing where he's like sort of I will make the hard decisions, I will do these things because they need to be done, not realizing that there are like other ways to do it. He's like, no, we need to make the tough decision, and I'm willing to make that hard decision, so we're going to do that.
Yeah, I feel
and that's not always the right decision.
We know that Ironwood's body is half metal, and he has gone through something really traumatic in his past that he probably shouldn't have survived by all means, but and it has given him his fear drives him to do really extreme, reckless things because he has this thing in the back of his mind that's happened to him. He knows exactly how bad it can get, and he is so determined for that not to happen that he's actually going to push it towards happening. Like, it's like meeting your destiny on the path you take to avoid it, essentially. If you go about it the wrong way, you're just going to end up forcing it to happen. Because he's already made relations with Mistral worse. And, like, he is essentially the driving force behind the Second Great War.
Driving the world to war, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Because, like, the last thing that they saw before the world's communications went down was
at Legion,
his people attacking Vale. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's what the last thing the world saw, and now they're consolidating power as well. Like, these other kingdoms are going, the fuck?
He's not thinking about these things because the world already blames Atlas because of what they saw. And everywhere else besides who was at Beacon don't know the truth about what happened because they didn't see it and they weren't there. And the world is already mistrustful of Atlas, and now the dust embargo, and now they've closed their borders, and the world is like, hang on a second, what the hell is Atlas up to? And Salem's plan really is foolproof because she is trying to make this happen. She's trying to sow mistrust between the people of Rendon, and it's working because humans are inherently mistrustful and inherently repeat their past mistakes and always war and always fight and always bicker. So, you know, foolproof plan by Salem there, and it's going to work because it's already working. But, you know, yeah, so Haven Academy's deserted, yeah. There was a short Blake scene in here, so, which kind of took me by surprise a little bit, but I liked the bit with Gira and Sun there, where they were sort of like, we can't let them get away with this, and Carly's like, well, you can agree on something at least, and then they have that awkward little, I don't like you thing.
And Sun's like, Gira's like, I
Sun.
still hate you.
Yeah, I really hope Gira will just give him a break, because Sun's actually a really good guy, and, like, his heart's in the right place. And, you know...
I think it is a thing where, like, I think he's probably too much like Gira, and that's why Gira's kind of...
They're kind of similar,
Gira needs to realize that, sort of.
I actually feel
but
like
at the same time, all he can see is this man this little girl's after my baby girl, kill.
Yeah, and Sun's not exactly making it subtle. Especially when he called her above average. Ouch. That look she gives him. But anyway, I really hope that the dynamic improves between Gira and Sun, because I'm like, Gira, please just give Sun a break. He's actually a really good guy. Like, he has taken care of your daughter. Oh my god, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But he's taking care of your daughter. He really genuinely actually loves her. So, but you know, Blake's Gira's little girl, so I'm like, I level with him. Blake was a kind of weird in this bit here where she's like, guys, everything's gonna be okay. Just the way that was voiced and what her expression and her movements, I was like, that's a little weird. She was cool, calm, and collected. I feel like she was putting on a front, because then when she's by herself, she's sort of like, like, this is all a bit too hard kind of thing. What's with the random guard in the house as well?
I'm just wondering if it isn't because if Gira didn't, like, I don't know, call in some reinforcements because they already got attacked once in their own home, sort of. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. And like the conversation with Ilya, Blake is frustrating me because Ilya was obviously trying to warn her about something big. And I really, really don't like this talk of them going public with this information. And Ilya's like, leave Menagerie before it's too late. And I'm like, something huge is about to go down. Somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's going to die. And... yeah, it's just... It's a thing where, okay, they tried to get Finnick and Corsic, like, to get them arrested, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they throw Ilya under the bus. And first of all, why the hell Ilya is okay with that, God knows. But then Blake tells Ilya her plan, of what she's going to do, of going public with this information, blah, blah, blah. And then she immediately says, your plan's not going to work, leave Menagerie, please. Like, she was being so sincere. She was there to warn her.
Yeah, I don't want you to get hurt. Please leave Menagerie before this terrible thing that I know is about to happen happens. And Blake is being stubborn as usual.
And I can't help but wonder if this all wasn't part of, like, Finnick's plan. It was that there's some tidbit of information hid within those files that will, like, implicate Gira in something. And then the people will turn against Gira, and then the Albane twins will take control, or put somebody else in control of Menagerie who can then indoctrinate Menagerie to the new White Fang Order, kind of.
Here's what I feel like. In the next couple of chapters, something huge is going to go down with this going public thing. I feel like the White Fang is going to straight up try to kill Blake or Gira and succeed in... I feel like Gira's going to die. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, he doesn't really feel like a person who can stick around for a while. Because he's the old leader of the White Fang. Like, he needs to go, kind of.
And also, he is... he's too passive. And... like, the way he interacted with Corsic and Finnick, he was like, explain all this crap about Vale to me, and, like, he is too trusting, is the problem. But Blake knows what's up, but Gira's just being a little blind to it all. Although, in this particular scene, he was pretty fired up about it, but, yeah, I'm so nervous for what's gonna happen as far as this going public thing is concerned, because the White Fang is obviously going to crash that party. We know now, though, from the trailer, that Adam is probably going to have nothing to do with it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, something bad's going to happen there, definitely. I've got a very, very bad feeling. I'll be surprised if nobody dies. That's all I'm going to say. I feel like Volume 4 was our break. They almost killed Crow, but they didn't. Somebody is going to get hurt. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially just, I mean, not to jump forward too far, but with the way the intro sounds, like, they're like, it basically says, like, listen, you got your little moment to have a reprieve from the terribleness, but it's coming again, and it's going to get worse. And, like, they're
things
kind of...
will get worse before they get better, yeah. Yeah. Especially where the White Fang's concerned. Like, Blake is all determined to sort of right some wrongs and gain back the respect that the White Fang had as a peaceful force of change. She's so determined to do that, but I feel like they've got to make it not that easy. And one way they can do that is by showing just how aggressive the White Fang can be. Especially on their own turf, which Menagerie essentially is. Because Gira is far too passive of a leader. And just kind of blind to what's been going on because, he hasn't been in Vale. Whereas Blake has. She's seen firsthand exactly what the White Fang are capable of. And she knows that they have no limits where it's concerned. As far as hurting people goes, they have no limits. If somebody's in their way, they will get rid of them. And Gira is in their way.
Cinder, earlier we talked about that briefly, and yeah, we all believe that
I'm pretty sure it's
that woman's the Spring Maiden.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to think that. Yeah. Yes, I definitely think she's the Spring Maiden. She looks really cool though. I like her design.
She does look cool.
She doesn't look at all how I envisioned her, but I like that. I like that she's not stereotypical. Yeah. Exactly.
I like that because especially what we saw of the Spring Maiden in the world of Remnant, where she was like, oh, so pretty and flowers, and I'm in a dress, and this lady's like tattoos and short hair, and like
I like it.
I'm gonna fucking kill people.
I definitely feel like the Spring Maiden's heading for a redemption arc. Like they said, she was a child when she got her powers, so she was quite young. And she just, at first, she was determined to do her duty, but then it all became a bit much. Butch, yeah, that's the word, exactly. It all became a bit much, and I feel like she probably has inklings of guilt and regret, especially with how things are in the world at the moment, and with what happened to Vale. She probably still has that sense of duty, but it's been piled on top of by 10 years of living with this terribly bad influence of a bandit tribe and Raven as a leader. We don't know how long Raven's been leading. I don't think it's been that long. Because she says to Crow that I lead our people now, so it obviously hasn't been that long.
It was probably around the time that Yang was born that she went back.
I think so, yeah.
So...
can we not have a redemption arc? I feel like it has to happen, because...
no, I think that the new Spring Maiden's just flat out gonna die, and we're gonna get a new one.
Do you think so? Well, because they killed the full maiden. They killed Amber, and Cinder is now the full maiden. So obviously Cinder can reach the relic of knowledge.
I wrote that down.
Wasn't it? Yeah, I wrote it down as well. Where is it?
No, Fall was choice.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So Cinder has the ability to reach the relic of choice, but they can't find it, is the problem. I feel like Ozpin has stashed it somewhere. Originally, I thought his staff might have been the relic, but now I don't think that.
Yeah, now that we know that it's protected in a room that only the maidens can open.
Yeah, exactly. So,
or it's stashed in a place where only the maidens can open. I don't want to say a room, but...
I feel like Spring has to have a redemption arc because she needs to access the relic of knowledge. I don't think they're going to kill her just because they killed the full maiden. So I feel like the Spring Maiden's going to stick around for a little while, and the fact that she's in the intro makes me think that as well, whereas we didn't know anything about Amber until she was literally shown, basically. She was mentioned in passing before that, but again, like, that huge spoilers for Volume 3, whereas now we know about the maidens, we know about the relics, we know the dynamic. But the fact
they also immediately mentioned Spring in the first episode, and then the intros at the end of the first episode, so they can kind of get away with allowing us to speculate their Spring.
Well, they even Crow mentioned Spring to Raven way back in Chapter 4 of last volume, so I don't know where the Spring Maiden is, he said, and he knows that Raven's got her, and now we know that Raven's got her as well. Amber was a left field thing, she was totally out of left field. We didn't know anything about the maidens until all of that was explained to us in Volume 3, but now we are in the know, and the fact that the Spring Maiden's in the intro means that she's going to be important. And in the way that she is, and she's facing Cinder, and they are both maidens, I feel like there's going to be a huge fall-spring dynamic going on here. I feel like now that Watts is aware of what Crow told Leo, Salem is going to be after the Spring Maiden, and now they know where she is, and that's not good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Cinder just said that Spring is still a child, but she isn't. She inherited her powers 10 years ago.
Yeah, did you miss the part where they said it's been a decade? Because she was a child when she got it, so she's in her 20s now.
Yeah, so she was... I mean, you have to be a young woman to inherit the powers, and I imagine that means, like, probably had to have hit puberty.
Yeah, so, like, 14 and above, I'm just going to assume. I feel like they said that Spring was quite young when she inherited her power, so I feel like she was about Oscar or Ruby's age when she inherited her power. And then she just got a bit overwhelmed, and, it's understandable.
She's probably approaching 30-ish around there now.
There, yeah. Well, if it's been 10 years, she's probably in her mid to late 20s, yeah. Spring's character actually really reminds me of Teresa in Fable. Like, because Teresa was picked up by bandits, and she was a Cirrus, and that sort of... And then Teresa became this sort of, like, bandit girl, but she... a bit of a different character to Spring, I suppose. Yeah, I'm getting a bad feeling because if Salem wants Spring, Salem will get her. There won't be any stopping her, especially if Cinder's involved. So...
Well, the thing I'm mostly wondering is that, like, I still... To an extent, I wonder if she still can't be manipulated. Because, like, Raven's already turned her to, the gray side. And, so, like, who's to say that if they didn't get the chance to, if they didn't give her the choice of, like, listen, just join us. Why do you want all this responsibility? Just let us have the artifact, and you don't have any responsibility. Like, kind of. You can go back to doing what you want, and you will be respected by us, and blah blah blah. Like, I feel like she would take that deal, sort of a thing, if they got the chance. Because there's still the other thing of, like, are they going to try to do another Cinder thing where they give somebody a glove and say, go get the Spring Maiden, or are they going to try to turn this one?
I feel like, yeah, because Spring is a grey area, that's a possibility. But I also feel like Raven is not going to be willing to let Spring go. So they're setting up for some big confrontation there. Especially because, like, in the intro, Cinder and Spring are facing off. So there's going to be some kind of huge confrontation.
Oh my god, two maidens going at it.
End? Oh my gosh.
Not like that.
How it's going to end, I don't know yet. I need to see more episodes before I can sort of see how it's going to end. I don't know that this volume is going to end well, necessarily. I feel like it's going to be a bit of an in-between ending, like a bit bittersweet, maybe?
Yeah, kind of a thing where it's like they lost the relic, but they saved the kingdom, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they lost Spring to their enemies, and now they've got to go get her back. Maybe something like that, yeah. I don't know, but they're setting up for a big confrontation, especially with the 2 extra chapters. I feel like 13 and 14 are going to be a 2-part finale that's this huge, big confrontation that's going on. Everybody's meeting up all at once, and, like, I feel like they're not going to... that is, Ruby, Weiss, Yang, etc. are not going to meet up with Blake until chapter 13. I feel like Blake is not going to come into this whole thing until right at the end. Because she's got her own problems to deal with right now. She's not even left Menagerie yet. But this thing that's going to go down is going to force her to leave, I think. Whether it's to escape being killed, or whether it's to go confront people, because something has to happen to make Blake leave, because she's got to go. She has to go to Mistral, or she's not going to be, involved in this. And the intro at the end with Team RWBY running together and attacking Salem together, that says by the end of this volume, Team RWBY will be reunited. But it'll be a very last minute thing.
I do agree that it'll be,
They will reunite, and there'll be a huge confrontation that goes on. And how it will end, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Not well, I don't think. But not necessarily badly. So we already talked about most of the stuff I've got written here. Oh, Crow quit teaching. So we talked about this last podcast, because I was like, I don't see Crow as being a school teacher, and he actually then mentioned in chapter 1, like, I quit teaching for a reason. I was like, that makes sense. Because Crow doesn't seem like somebody who has the patience for it. They said that Amber, as a maiden, was young and inexperienced, so I don't think she'd been a maiden for very long. And she got her ass kicked by 3... by Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury, and Emerald and Mercury were, children at the time. Not children, but, like 15. Roughly. And my computer just went really quiet. That was weird. So, yeah, and if Amber was young and inexperienced, and she was still pretty powerful, Spring has been a maiden for 10 years. So I'm expecting to see really powerful stuff from Spring. I feel like we are going to get to see her in action, but not until towards the end, or somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle, I think, is more likely, because I feel like Salem and their crew are going to show up and be like trying to take Spring away from the tribe, and Raven's not going to have that. Oh, I'd be so happy if they killed Raven. Please kill Raven! No, they won't do it, because she's got a lot of development to go still. Now, speaking of Raven again, how the hell do Ranger know about Raven and that she's Yang's mother? How do they know who she is?
Well, the thing that I noticed is they all referred to her as Yang's mom. So I'm wondering if Yang hadn't maybe talked about her. But then again, no, I don't think she would have. But who knows, maybe Crow did just flat out mention Raven at some point. Or
I feel like that's too big of a thing for them to do off screen. It's really strange. But I'm like...
But the thing I was just wondering is, like, who knows, maybe even just RWBY told them about it, because, like, they knew the name Raven Bronwyn, and maybe they were just talking about Team Stark, the team that her parents were on.
Yeah, RWBY obviously knew that Raven was a member of Team Stark, and obviously Raven is Crow's sister, so Raven is Yang's mother. And I guess RWBY would have known as much as Yang knew before Crow told Yang a bit more.
But they all seemed surprised to learn that she was a bandit. Yeah, because they all kind of went,
they don't know
Yang's
that much,
mom?
Clearly. And, like, I guess RWBY could have relayed that information to everyone else. But then, like, in Volume 2, when Yang has that conversation with Blake wasn't aware that Yang and RWBY had different mothers at that point. So, because she says, you know, my mum, and Blake's, like, surprised, like, you have a different mum to RWBY? Like, it's not a thing that they really knew, and not a thing that they talked about. But I guess RWBY could have filled them in, but for them to do that off-screen is strange to me, because it's quite a big deal. Like, it's a big piece of
it also feels like a thing. But it feels like the only reason they would do that is if Yang was there, kind of.
Yeah. No, it's just weird to me that they've done that off screen, and now Crow mentions Raven, and suddenly everybody knows who Raven is. I'm like, excuse? You missed something there. There's a missing link here somewhere. But I just hate it when they do shit like that off screen. But I understand that they have to consolidate screen time because they've only got so much, and they've got a lot to get through this volume. So I get it, but it's still annoying.
The other one thing I noticed that happened before that was when Leo was talking about the events of the fall of Beacon and talked about that girl getting ripped apart. Yeah, like RWBY like winced kind of, and that was just like, oh baby.
I also thought it was interesting that he said that poor girl, not that robot. You know, like it was interesting because obviously that was an event that shocked Remnant, and the fact that Penny was a robot kind of got lost in the fact that they just watched who they perceived as a person get ripped into pieces. And the part that she's a robot didn't really compute. Oh, sorry about the pun! That didn't compute.
I don't know. I just can't help but wonder if, like, maybe the way that they filmed the Vital Festival, that maybe there wasn't like some kind of sort of aspect of it where you got to like know the fighters, or at least kind of. So they got to like see Penny as this, like, you know, optimistic, like, I'm combat ready girl throughout the tournament, and then they watched this, you know, bubbly, great fighting little girl get torn in pieces, and like they probably all registered that she was, you know, a robot because it was part of Cinder's speech. Yeah. Like, why would Atlas have the need for a
soldier
girl
disguised as an innocent girl? Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's something that clearly was mentioned, but maybe people still were so absorbed in the fact of, oh my god, that poor girl.
Yeah, and I'm what you said about, like, them having, I feel like before the one-on-one rounds, they might have done, like a feature for everyone who was in the one-on-one rounds, like, you know, a little bit about them and their, you know, their history as fighters or that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a possibility that the audience could have definitely seen more about that than we know. Because obviously they couldn't have done that for the 4-on-4, maybe for the 2-on-2, but in the 4-on-4 there were a lot of teams competing. So, well, and we did see a little bit of, like, when Team Indigo was introduced and Team Sun, they did say a little bit about the teams and you know, where they've come from, and they even mentioned that Sun is originally from Vacuo, so obviously they give the audience during the tournament a bit more information than we are given as an audience. So I kind of, I don't want to say it's like the Hunger Games, but like in the Hunger Games they let people get to know the combatants a bit. I feel like it's the same sort of thing. With like any sort of reality TV competition, I guess, that you get these days, they let you get to know the contestants, and this the same kind of thing, I guess. So it would make sense, yeah. When Crow showed Leo those coordinates, he definitely forwarded those to Watts. That's what he was doing with that keyboard, I reckon.
Yeah, because we saw that it said copying and then disconnecting.
Yeah.
But I can't help but, like, I mean, you know, if nothing else, if he was just copying, he's going to forward them to Watts. Yes. Although, as we heard, Watts was listening in the whole time, like...
Through the desk. What is it with the desks in the headmaster's offices being these essentially normal-looking objects that are anything but normal? Like, this is just a wood desk. Like, Ozpin's even was a bit futuristic and a bit like, yeah, I can see how that's like a holographic reading thingy. But... Leo's desk is just a big brown mahogany thing. I'm like, how is that? How? How does that work? So, you know, but obviously the desks are like, you know, they're all of the Huntsman headmaster's desks are designed that way. But Leo's just struck me as a bit odd because it's just a big wood thing. And the bit where Crow was getting annoyed and then threw those books off the desk seemed a little...
was really strange.
It was weird, wasn't it? Because his tone of voice didn't match with his actions, is the problem. The
other thing I thought was the backing score needed to be a little bit more like... Brah, kind of. Like, it was so just almost not there. So I was just like... It was just such a weird outburst of like...
Yeah, it was...
Where it kind of made him feel childish because he was just suddenly like, wah!
Strange. And, like, it wasn't even like an outburst because his voice didn't even raise that much. I feel like the way Vic played it was not how they animated it. I feel like they animated it differently to how Vic played it. And it shows. It's really obvious. I'm like, ooh, that was really weird. Why did they do that?
That was really awkward.
And Ren's line when he's like, maybe there's a more peaceful way to approach this. I'm like, Ren, get the fuck out of here with your peace. Like, seriously. It's a bit late for that, dude. There is no peaceful way to approach this now. Like, it's not gonna be effective.
I still don't know. I still think that they should try and talk to her, but I still think at the end of the day, push comes to shove, they need Spring. Yeah. And they're gonna fucking take Spring.
Yeah, I feel like definitely, because Crow is Raven's sister... but they've already talked about Spring Maiden. She was not even willing to say that she had the Maiden because she doesn't want Crow to take her away from him. I feel like that side of things could be resolved peacefully if they had the time to. But they don't, because now Watts is aware of where Spring is, and he's going to pass that on to Salem, and Salem's going to be like, go get her.
Yeah, that's the thing I thought too, William, was that the only way that they could possibly take Spring is with Ruby's silver eyes. But they're not training her, and it pisses me off.
I know! If they don't get to this volume, I'm going to be like, why? Seriously, you have this nuclear weapon sitting there. Teach her how to use it. Seriously. Even if, like, they can't. Crow obviously knows a little bit about it. And, like, she needs to learn how to use it. Because it's a game changer. We saw how powerful it is when she used it by accident before. And it did knock her out, to be fair. So...
yeah, that she was out of commission for like 3 weeks, but, you know...
there's obviously a huge learning curve that comes with it.
But her mother was... From what we can guess, because we still know nothing, her mother was fairly proficient silver-eyed warrior, like...
and Crow knew Summer. Obviously,
yeah, and
more well than he lets on, he did. Yeah, I know, right, William? Literally holding the key to victory. Use it, exactly.
I just can't help but wonder if it doesn't have to do with the fact that if it's because the silver eyes is what's got Summer killed, and Crow doesn't want to lose Ruby, so he's like, no, we're not training her.
He might be
and it could now that Ozpin's back in the picture, like involving Ruby and Crow and everything, I wonder if that isn't almost going to like draw some tension there with him being like, we need to train her. Like, and, now that she used it once, we need to train her.
the fact that Oscar's first words to Ruby were "You have silver eyes" is kind of bringing it back around to that. Ozpin said that to Ruby. Ozpin knows about the Silver-Eyed Warriors, and probably more than Crow does.
It's the reason he let Ruby into Beacon.
Yeah, Summer attended Beacon as well, and she had silver eyes, and she knew how to use them. So, that is mahogany!
Are you only just now reading that?
I only just saw that. Yeah, so like, it's just, the whole thing is just so frustrating. Leo's completely right about them getting one shot at this, but he's gonna bugger it all up with his bloody being too cowardly to fucking, so annoying. He's gonna screw everything up. But you know, he has to, because we have to have conflict, or it wouldn't be interesting. Ruby's just too precious with how she's like, it was nice meeting you. I'm like, Ruby, you are a cinnamon roll. Like, seriously. Yeah. And Crow is being far too trusting. Considering everything that just happened, he's being too trusting of Leo, and Leo was acting really weirdly in that whole scene.
Yeah.
Because he knew Watts was listening.
I just... There, a few other things that I noticed in that scene were... one thing that surprised me was Crow was fully willing to fight Raven for Spring. And I was a little surprised by that, because he still kind of seemed like this, like, I don't really want to fight you sort of a thing. Like, it almost felt like he had a Blake and Ilya thing going on between them. But he was fully willing to, like, let's fucking take out my sister.
I feel like Crow knows that what's at stake is more important than him and his sister. So he's like, if I have to hurt or kill my sister to get to Spring, I will do it. Because that's what I have to do. But he's going to do everything in his power to avoid that, I feel like, as well. Because she is his sister. Even if he doesn't like her very much. It's obvious he doesn't like her very much. Nobody likes her. She's Raven. But, you know. The repeated post-credit scene with Oscar and Crow. So I realised when Crow said Ozpin wouldn't be happy with any of this if he were here, I was like, oh, that scene hasn't happened yet. And then I was like, are we about to see it? And then we did. So it was a weird sense of deja vu, because it was the same scene, but it was in the Volume 5 style, so it was all lit differently. I'm like, this is really weird. It's the same scene, but it looks different.
Yeah, I know. I noticed it too, and I didn't notice it on my first watch through, but my second time I was like, oh, this is like slightly different.
It is. It's lit differently because they have played with the lighting. That's really the only thing that's different, except for the compositing is different as well, because that changed from volumes 4 to 5. But it's exactly the same animation. They have literally used the same animation from that scene. They have just changed the lighting, the composition, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Were there extra shots in there? Because I didn't notice any.
There were none.
Cinder says there was.
No, there weren't. Go back and watch the post-credit scene from Volume 4. It's exactly the same. I've seen the scene enough times to know that. Yeah, it's the same animation, because also, why would they add shots that's just extra work that doesn't need to be there when they already have the scene ready to go? They just need to fiddle with a couple of things. I feel like showing the entire scene wasn't necessary, and it did fill out screen time though, and I feel like there are also people who don't watch the post-credit scenes. Why wouldn't you? But there are people who don't, and it is an important scene that does need to be shown. So that's why they re-showed it. Ty liked her enough. William, that's disgusting. But even Ty talks about her like, she was great, but she's got problems.
He was like, she was great for a while, and then, you know...
But she did tear our family and team apart. Essentially.
Yeah, kind of sounds like, you know, maybe it wasn't the most healthy of relationships, where it was sort of a thing where they were young and in love, or in lust, and then just bada bing, bada boom, babe.
Just lost, yeah. Although Yang says Summer wasn't the first love he'd lost, he was the second, so...
True.
Him and Raven probably were, like... I imagine they were, like, a thing during, like, their time at Beacon. And then when they graduated, they obviously made Yang, and then she nicked off. They were going through issues, obviously, before all of that. And then, I don't know, the whole dynamic's weird, because Ty was
We need to learn more.
I know, we need to learn more about Stark. Ty was with both of the women from his team, so I'm like, player, first of all. Secondly, what the hell is going on with that dynamic? We need to know more. And where is Crow in all of this? Why didn't Crow get with Summer? Well, some people think that he did, but, you know, I'm not even going to go into that, because Crow is not Ruby's father. Yeah. The Yang scene, oh my god, there's so much to get through in this episode. Holy crap, we've been going nearly 2 hours already. Let's zoom through the rest of this. So, the gas station that Yang's at is called Just Right. Which sets up the reference they make to Goldilocks when that annoying dude is like, oh, you're not too bulky, not too lean, you're just right.
Just right. I was kind of
kill me.
I was kind of like, Jesus, you already made the pun on the gas station. Why are you making it again in the gas station?
I know, seriously. And that guy who doesn't have a name, I'm just going to call him
Shady guy.
I'm just going to call him Woody, because he looks like Gavin's character Woody from Laser Team. Just without the mustache. Well,
no, we'll call him Connie, because he's voiced by the same guy who voices Connie in Attack on Titan.
Yeah, he is. Okay, Connie. When he says... when the bartender says, aren't you a little young to be drinking? That's a callback to the Yellow trailer as well, because Junior says, aren't you a little young to be in this club? Any spoilers from Chapter 1? What? We're literally discussing the entire chapter in detail. So if you don't want spoilers, leave. Go watch it first. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, he totally looks like Gavin's character from Laser Team, just without the mustache. I love that when Yang punched him, first of all, that slow-mo shot, gorgeous. Secondly, she knocked his tooth out.
Yeah.
Which I found really amusing, because in the slow-mo you can see his tooth flying off the screen. I'm like, that's really funny. But then, the bit after that, where he starts bouncing between the floor and the wall and flies out the door, I'm like, that was ridiculous.
That was unnecessary.
That was so unnecessary. I'm like, why did they do that? It would have been enough for him to just fly straight out the door, and it would have been less ridiculous. It was just didn't need to be there. I feel like it was a little bit of wasted effort as far as animation's concerned.
I didn't mind the slow motion, William. I felt like it went on too long. Like, it went on like a second or two too long.
Yeah, the slow motion. Yeah, it was a tiny bit too long. Like, even if they cut a few extra frames off, I feel like it would have been better. And the fact that it was the wide shot and then the punch in also made it feel a lot longer than it probably actually was. It was only like 2 seconds of slow-mo, but it felt so much longer because it was 2 shots. They love their slow-mo, though, obviously, Rooster Teeth, and I feel like, because it's so difficult to animate slow motion, they should have not done it for so long. And it could have saved them a lot of time as well if it had been a bit shorter. But the bouncing
I don't think it's necessarily harder to do slow motion. It just
takes more time, definitely, because it's more frames to animate.
But it's still, if you still probably do it the same way, where you take the keyframes and then you kind of just go in and you extend you take this start position, the end position, and instead of having it last like 1 second like it normally would, you have it last 3 seconds, and you can go in there and fiddle with it. I don't
know how the slow-mo works in Maya, but it definitely takes longer to animate slow-mo than it does to animate real-time. So it could have been time saved on animation if they'd made that just a bit shorter, because it was a bit too long. And the bouncing around was just... it made me laugh, but for the wrong reason. I remember in my reaction, I laughed, and then I was like, why did they do that? That's really weird.
Yeah.
I did like about this scene, though, after she punched him and reached for the water, her hand was shaking. And Miles mentioned this in the RWBY panel at RTX. He was like, Yang's got a little bit of shaky going on. Finally, we are getting to see her sort of dealing with her post-traumatic stress. And it's not going to be as simple as her just going back to the way things were. She's not going to be able to go back to the way things were. But she was able to sort of like just grab her hand and just sort of take a deep breath, and then she was fine. Yeah, so she's...
I can't help but wonder if that guy getting close to her was the trigger. Because she, in the shot right before he reached for her hair, she had this like look on her face where she was like kind of scared. Sort of. So I can't help but wonder if...
Yeah, I feel like her anger was a response to her fear. Yeah, definitely.
Plus also she's getting catcalled, and like, you know, it's a really
disgusting.
Bad power dynamic with...
She's only just of age, like, come on. To be fair, she doesn't look like a teenager, but, you know.
Yeah.
I did like that when she sculls the water, she holds up one finger to the bartender with a metal arm, like, hang on a sec, dude, let me finish this. Then I'll answer your question. Excuse me, hold on a moment. And, when Yang was walking towards the door and she says that line, "So I hear," she so reminded me of Clementine from The Walking Dead. I was like, I was looking at that shot, I was like, oh my god, she reminded me of Clementine there. And I couldn't pick it why, but it was something about her expression and the way she said the line really reminded me of Clementine.
Our little badass.
Yeah, little Clemmy. That guy in the bar, so he either knows Raven or he knows of her. I
think he knows of Raven.
He probably knows of her, and he has his ways to... Maybe he knows somebody that's in the tribe, or like... but he is going to be Yang's connection to the Brunwyn tribe, obviously. But the biggest thing about this Yang scene is that Yang's entire feel as a character has changed quite drastically.
Yeah.
She has anger issues, I feel like. She got angry at that guy very quickly. And to be fair, he was harassing her. But I'm like, she has some shit to work through still. And even like the way she was saying her lines, I feel like if that scene occurred in Volume 1, it would have been played extremely differently to how it was played there. And she's a completely different character now.
It's probably a symptom of her PTSD, though, is like, you know, quick to anger, and even more quick to anger than usual, and, you know...
Yang is definitely seems to be a bit more world-weary now, because this awful, traumatic thing has happened to her. She knows how bad things can be. She's a bit more guarded, and a bit less optimistic, I feel like, than she was before. And I don't think the old Yang is ever going to truly come back. But I feel like also once she meets back up with RWBY, RWBY will bring her old self back out a bit. But for now, while she's on her own, she doesn't really have to put on a front. She can be a bit unfriendly and a bit, you know... what's the word?
Plus, I mean, like, she's going to find her mother, who, you know, is a bad woman. So, like, of course she's kind of, like, steeling herself. Because she's like, listen, I'm going to meet this woman I've been wanting to see for 18 years, and she's not who I thought she was, and all this stuff. So she's like preparing herself for this moment of, you know, whatever her plan is. I doubt she's trying to kill her or whatever.
No,
I'm sure she's
like she
preparing herself for like disappointment or whatever.
I feel like she wants some answers from Raven. And there's a lot of things she wants answers to. She wants an explanation from Blake for why she took off after Yang bloody took an arm for her. I feel like Yang's frustrated, and she's had enough, and she wants some goddamn answers, which is why she's going after Raven now, because that's the thing she can do right now, because she has no idea where Blake is, or if she'll even ever see her again. So for right now, this is what she can do. And I feel like she sort of knows that RWBY can kind of take care of herself. And I think she knows that Crow has gone with her, so I don't think she's terribly worried about her sister right now, but she has this opportunity she knows where her mother is, and she can go and find her, and she's taking the opportunity to do that. But I'm still annoyed at her. Because I'm like, forget your mother. She doesn't care.
I feel like she is still guilty about the fact that she is not with Ruby. Because, like she says in the Yang trailer, I'll always have your back, and then she doesn't. And
I just feel like she's frustrated. She wants some damn answers about some things, and she's gonna go get them while she can, because she's not gonna let the opportunity slip through her fingers. We went back to Ranger then, and Oscar showing up. So Nora's reaction to Oscar when he asked if there's a Ruby Rose there, she's like, "Why? Like, why are you after me?
I know, I
What do you
love that
want?"
scene too, where Nora was like, "I don't care that you're 14, I'll tear your head off."
Hi, Larissa. Yeah, that was so, like, gave me fuzzy feelings to know that, because Ranger is aware that, or JNR are aware that they've seen that people are after Ruby because of her Silver Eyes and what she did to Cinder. They fought Tyrion. They know that these people that are after Ruby are scary. But they're still like, if you touch Ruby, we will kill you. We don't care if you're 14. Like, seriously. Why are you asking about Ruby?
But the thing that surprised me most is that when Jean went to answer the door, like, they were all clearly, like, freaked out, but he didn't grab his sword. And, like, granted, we saw in a shot a little bit later that his sword was fairly close to the door, but it wasn't, like, behind the door. Like, he still would have had to step back and kind of go, like, to get his sword. He would have had to reach
for it, yeah.
Whereas, like, why didn't he, like, as he got up, grab it and, like, kind of tuck it behind the door as he opened it up?
Hello,
like,
Larissa.
You know.
Yes, we'll get to Drunkle Crow in a second, but, it's kind of nice to know that JNR are gonna protect Ruby with their lives, basically, if they have to. Because Ruby has pissed off some pretty powerful people, so. And she nearly got in the shit with Tyrion, so it was close. So that was kind of a nice thing. And even Ren, like, stood up and was, like, narrowing his eyes at Oscar and was like, "Excuse me." Ren never says much, but everything is in his body language. And he's like, he is also like, "Touch Ruby, I'll rip your head off." Whereas Jean was a bit, like, just confused. Yeah. I'm sure, like, if it came down to it. I'm pretty sure that in Chapter 6 of Volume 4, when Tyrion was about to sting Ruby, Jean looked like he was about to do something really stupid.
I know, you and I were both in our reactions, you and I were both like, "No, Jean!"
Yeah. I know for a fact that Jean will protect Ruby with his life as well. It's just that he's a little less quick to sort of I don't know, jump to conclusions,
throw himself into danger.
Yeah, because he knows he's useless, that's why. He's not a Nora or a Ren. He's not at their level, but so Drunkle Crow. I have an interesting tidbit of information about Drunkle Crow in that Miles said at the RWBY panel that he mocapped Crow for that scene. And
oh, really?
I forget who he mocapped with, but somebody else was mocapping Oscar. And I remember him saying that he said to this person, "I'm gonna touch you a lot while we do this." It was just so weird, because, like, Crow is all over Oscar. He's like, "I found him!" He's like, "I apologize, but I'm gonna touch you a lot." It was really funny, but just knowing that Miles mocapped Drunkle Crow is hilarious to me. Drunkle Crow is the freaking best. We haven't really seen him like that yet, and it was too funny. I was laughing my ass off during that scene. And, like, it was voice acted by Vic so well. It was just so good. But yeah, we talked about Oscar mentioning that Ruby has silver eyes, and again, like, that's an Osborn thing. Frickin' Drunkle Crow, man. His little, like, "I found him," and then, like, his giggles and, "Wait for it."
Wait for it.
And then at the end, I did it! And then he falls on his face. And I loved Nora's little reaction at the end there. She just sort of goes, "Oh!" Like, and he falls on his face. Too funny. I was laughing so hard during that scene. I freaking love Crow so much. That scene just made me love him even more. Did you get drunk again? Maybe.
Maybe.
So funny. Oh god. So yeah, the intro. We've talked a little bit about the intro, but I feel like this song, which its name is The Triumph, by the way, if you weren't aware of that.
I thought it was just Triumph.
No, Jeff Williams said it was The Triumph. So
why would you add an article on it?
I don't know. It's no good. We'll know for sure when the soundtrack comes out if he decides to change it or not. But of course, all the songs we hear in the show right now are rough. They're not finished at this stage. The only ones that I think are finished is the one from the Weiss character short. The one from the Yang one is not finished. That has got a whole 3-minute full version coming, definitely. Because we only heard a tiny bit of that in the short. And I believe that song is called Ignite, as confirmed by Casey Lee on Twitter. Yeah. I can't really hear the words, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's basically your stereotypical... It's I Burn 2.0, essentially.
Well, I mean, the thing I noticed about it is it's really aggressive because, like, you hear things like, one of the lines in Ignite is, "Didn't your mother warn you? Now she's going to mourn you." Yeah,
that's like, pretty, like, woof.
Yeah, and then there was something like, I'm relentless and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like, this is like angry Yang song.
It's like I Burn, but Volume 5-esque I Burn. A Yang versus Mercury rematch. Yeah, I actually feel like Mercury in the intro was just stuck in there because they didn't have anyone else to put there. And also Emerald is absent from the intro as well.
It felt so weird that they have Yang fighting a specific person, but then Weiss and RWBY aren't fighting anybody like 2 shots later. So it was kind of a weird choice. But yeah, it's, as we've seen time and time again, they show fights in the intro that aren't actually in the show. Yeah. So it's kind of a thing where it's, it's something we could maybe happen, but I wouldn't trust it. Although I will say that Mercury's eyebrows weren't quite as weird in the intro.
Oh, Cinder says she did a side-by-side comparison of the post-credits scene, and the original actually had one more shot. Are you sure about that? Because I don't remember an extra shot.
I think it might have cut back to Oscar one more time in the original to like continue to build the tension between Crow and Oscar in that scene.
Are you positive? Because I feel like they're exactly the same. I can't think of any extra shots. I'm gonna go look at it myself, but I'm like 99% certain they're exactly the same. William says he doesn't feel like they had enough precedent for their protectiveness of RWBY to be justified. Talking about JNR, you forget the fact that Tyrion almost killed Crow, and Crow's a trained huntsman, and for them to watch that happen is scary. So they know that who wants RWBY, they're bad people. So of course they're going to be protective of RWBY. And RWBY's their friend and has been for like a year. So they've already built this previous camaraderie with each other. The Triumph, the song, this intro had to grow on me. I wasn't a huge fan of it the first time I saw it, just because it wasn't at all what I was expecting. But I do really, really like it now after watching it several times and editing it, the lyric video yesterday, which I don't know when that will be up as well. It's up on my VidMe right now, actually, if you want to go see it. So you can click on my VidMe below the stream. I feel like this song is somewhere between This Will Be the Day and When It Falls, as far as like tone and style is concerned. It's kind of a mix of those two. The biggest problem I had with the intro is that some of the action's way too slow for the music, especially in the bit with Ranger and Nora and Crow and Oscar. And then there's a really awkward shot of Adam and Hazel that lasts for way too long, and they literally don't move until near the end of the shot. And I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't sit well with me. It's like, because there's this fast background music going, and there's just this really weird suspended shot of these guys standing there. And I'm like, that's not good. The tendrils that come out at Lionheart with what's in the background, I actually think that's the Seagrim. Because the Seagrim has those, like, tentacly... And, like, in the trailer, we see one of those exact same tendrils wrap around Leo's neck. I think it's the Seagrim. Because there's 6 of them in that shot, and the Seagrim has 6 tentacles. So...
I'll have to go look back in Volume 4 and see if they have the little, like...
The little blade
arrowhead at the end.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the Seagrim. Yeah, we don't know much about what the point of the Seagrim is, but Salem did send it somewhere. She said, reinforce our numbers at Beacon, the relic is there. So, obviously, the Seagrim has something to do with the relics. Or maybe it's a form of communication as well.
I think that's what it is. It's
so,
more like...
Salem may have been talking to someone through the Seagrim. So, it's like a crystal ball, essentially. So, she could send the Seagrim to Haven to communicate with Leo.
William, the only reason I don't think that that's possible is it doesn't match his color scheme, and they usually tend to stick in color scheme with weapons.
Yeah, it's not what's his weapon.
Because as I said for the trailer one, I was under the impression that maybe Sienna Khan's weapon, but you know, if it is, the Seer Grim idea is also it could be. And, you know, especially if he starts getting defiant with Salem, and that's, you know, so the Seer Grim lashes out as like a, listen.
Yeah, I definitely
Stay
think
in
that's
line.
the Seer Grim now. Tyrion isn't scary enough for you, William. What do you find scary? Because Tyrion terrifies me. Like, we saw what he could do. He beat Crow, you forget. But only because RWBY got in the way, to be fair. It was evenly matched before that point. But the fact that he's evenly matched with Crow, and Crow is a huge badass, scares me. So, and I don't know how you don't feel like Ranger doesn't feel like a family. Because even before, Juniper and RWBY felt like one big family together. And now they've all lost Pyrrha. And that has brought them closer together and made them more afraid of losing each other. You're forgetting the fact that they already lost Pyrrha. J&R don't want to lose RWBY too. He did lose his tail, but that's not going to stop him from being a badass fighter.
Yeah, especially with, you know, who knows what exactly Salem can do. Like, maybe she will just, like, grow him a new tail, and she'll be like, bam.
Yeah.
You know, we have no idea what Salem's capable of.
Exactly. I also thought it was Sienna Khan's weapon, but now that I've seen the 6 of them in the intro, I'm like, that looks like the Seagrim to me. I'm going to have to go back and confirm that myself. But also, the Seagrim had 6 tentacles. I noticed it straight away. I was like, I think that's the Seagrim. But, and judging by the intro, the bit with Blake and Sun where they're on the bridge and they sort of look a bit tired, I'm feeling like Blake and Sun are going to be in Menagerie for a while yet. Maybe not the majority of the volume, because I feel like soon, either in chapter 2 or 3, something big's going to happen with this whole going public thingy. And soon enough, Blake is going to be forced to leave Menagerie.
Yeah. Plus, also, from the shots we saw of Weiss, we only saw her on the airship in the intro, and then in the, like, big cathedral. But we're obviously going to, like, see her elsewhere. So that's why it's the thing where it's... Locations that they show in the intro are also kind of not super to be trusted. No,
and of course, characters they show fighting other characters and don't always hint at confrontation between those specific characters.
How we had Weiss versus Emerald in 2 intros in a row, and those two never...
Yeah, Emerald was a complete throwaway in those intros, because who else were they going to put in there, really? And they had to have Emerald in the intros, so... And now Emerald's absent, but Mercury's not. But I noticed a funny thing in that, with the Yang versus Mercury bit in the intro, you don't actually see Mercury's face that whole time. Like,
there's one point you do.
There's a tiny shot right at the start when he shows up, that you see his face, but when he jumps, his face goes off the screen and then it cuts away. So, like, that's telling me that this is, like, Mercury is just there for the sake of having Yang fighting somebody that's not been shown in the intro yet. or that doesn't give things away. Because they could have her fighting somebody that she actually fights in the volume, but that's like a spoiler that they don't want to have. So, yeah, I feel like that's why they did that. There was Hazel versus Nora and Ren as well. And what I noticed about that was that Nora attacked Hazel, then he sort of threw her away by her hammer, which was kind of cool. But then Ren comes in, and if you go frame by frame, he's got a real, like, angry expression on his face, like he did when he was fighting the Knucklevi. So, yeah, Renora stuff going on there. They had Blake versus Ilya, which speaks for itself, and Yang versus Mercury, which is a throwaway. The animation of RWBY on the bit where it said the words go, oh, how did they go? I don't know this song very well yet, but "We'll win for sure," where she jumps up with her scythe. That's animated really weirdly. I wasn't a fan of that. It looks weird and floaty. But the shot immediately after that of Weiss jumping on the knight's sword and him throwing it around, that is amazing. I love that shot. It looks so good. Ren looked pissed, yeah, exactly. Blake could just not show up for a while to make up for a bigger screen haul last volume. I feel like nothing's going to change there, unfortunately. It's just that...
I don't want her to disappear, really. I still want her to be... I still want her to be main character again.
All the screen time, yeah. Because she definitely hogged the screen last volume. I feel like she's going to get the same amount of screen time as everyone else now. I feel like it's going to be more balanced. Because everybody is converging together, so everybody's story is just as relevant as each other. And everybody's story is just as interesting as each other at this point. Maybe except for Blake's, but I feel like it's about to get more interesting. I loved Team RWBY running together at the end. That was a cool thing to see. Gave me chills. The giant Salem is really scary and really weird. Like, why? Like, I get that they're trying to make it kind of dramatic, but I'm just like, that's terrifying. Why would they do that? They're trying to make her seem like this huge, big foe, which she is, a big, scary enemy, but it was just weird to me. Giant Salem is creepy, yeah, really creepy. So, getting to the lyrics of the new song.
One thing I did notice that I want to know what you thought about is the shot with Ilya and the Albane twins. Yeah. When they're like standing at a shrine to like it looked like kind of like a bear faunus wearing the same sort of garb as Fennec and Corsic. So I'm wondering if like there isn't some almost weird religious situation happening in Menagerie right now, and that's why like Fennec and Corsic have so much power, is because there's like all these people worshipping some faunus god.
It could be. Cory does mention that there are dozens of gods in the world of Ren that people have created. So the faunus could have their own gods. So it's entirely possible. So
it was just a weird thing where I was like wondering if, you know, like if maybe that was why Ilya was so willing to, you know, I don't know, stick with these things, is because she follows this religion of like, you know, Brutus, the faunus god who believed in power and blah blah blah, and I don't know.
Corsic
it was just I thought it was weird.
Do come off to me as very culty. And the White
we said
Fang,
that last time. Brother Adam.
Yes, brother Adam, sister Ilya. Yeah, exactly. They come off to me as very culty, and the White Fang is essentially like a cult, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's a religious factor
undertone in there.
Yeah, especially in Menagerie. Maybe not so much with what's going on with Adam at the moment, and in the rest of the world, but in Menagerie, definitely, I got that vibe from the Albane twins. I keep calling them the Corsic twins by mistake. Albane twins. So the lyrics to the new song, I have them. The ones that Jeff Williams supplied were not 100% accurate, because he tends to make typos when he writes his lyrics out. I know, because he's given them to me before with typos in them.
I read through it, and one line that I definitely thought was not right was in his it says we'll win, we're sure, we will endure.
No,
and I'm like, we'll win for sure.
Yeah, you can hear
like
it.
you can hear her say the for, like you hear her say for.
Yes, it's definitely for sure. And the other one was, he's got it as we'll be the ones to touch the sun, but it's will be the voice to touch the sun. Definitely the word voice. It's not the ones, it's the voice. Absolutely 100%. Like, if you listen to it, she's not saying the one, she's saying the voice. Yeah, so he tends to, nothing against Jeff, but I know from previous experience, him giving me lyrics in the past, he tends to get things wrong, which, like, he just doesn't proofread what he writes. But, you know, I can use my ears and hear when something's incorrect. Just about every time I've made a lyric video and gone to the wiki, I've noticed at least 3 or 4 lines that are incorrect. And then I've had to adjust them. The only one I've ever done where I've not been certain is that one word in This Life Is Mine, I let you be the keeper of my life, which I hear life. Other people hear pride, and the official lyrics hear pride. I do not hear pride. I hear life. And I'm not the only one either. There's a huge debate about that one word, just because it's not dictated very well. But every other song I've been able to, I've read the official lyrics and gone, yeah, that word's not right, that word's not right. Anyway, so with the lyrics, I actually really like the lyrics to this song. It's kind of like, it's after Let's Just Live now, Let's Just Live was, this is time to heal. And now this is like, okay, we've got to get back to it now. Something's about to go down, and we've got to get our crap together and sort this out. Even though it seems like it's going to be impossible, we still have to try. Is what this song is giving. I've always heard pride. Yeah, I've always heard life. That's the thing. So, oh, okay. So the words go back to the fairy tale, back to the show, back to the wall, and there's nowhere to go. I like that opening bit with so it's kind of like we're coming back to RWBY now, but it's yeah, it's, I don't know how to describe why I think these lines are so good. It's just sort of like reminding us that we're coming back into the action now, like crap's about to get real again, I think. Hopeless and desperate, all paths averse, things looking bleak, and they're bound to get worse. So that's kind of reminding us, like, this is not Volume 4. Things are going to go down, and people may get hurt, and people may die, and it may not be good. So just, this is kind of like, I know you had a rest last volume, but just prepare yourselves. Like, this isn't going to be Volume 3 necessarily, but it's still not going to be good. Let's not have a repeat of Volume 3, please.
Yeah.
Helpless and doomed, and there's no way to win. Goals unachievable, faith running thin, self-explanatory. Lost and forlorn, impossible odds. That's when you'll learn you've been messing with gods. So, yeah, tying in with everything that Crow has been explaining about the god of creation, the god of destruction, the relics that were given by the gods, the maidens, all that kind of stuff. It's all tying in that, like, now this is saying this is bigger than everything that this has been about. There is a bigger picture, there is a higher purpose at work.
Yeah, this isn't just the White Fang or Roman Torchwick. This is, like, you are messing with the force of creation.
And destruction,
like,
yeah. The Grimm also, we know, were supposedly created by the god of destruction. So we know where they come from, more or less now.
Although, weren't they the gods of light and darkness?
Light and darkness,
creation. Yeah. I don't know, because creation and destruction are two of their gifts.
Yeah, so the god of light and the god of darkness, yeah. The god of darkness created the Grimm. So we know that that's where they come from. If Ozpin is to be believed, that is. He's actually, we don't know if he's actually 100% sure that that's what happened. And we don't know where Salem ties into all of it. Because she obviously has something big to do with the Grimm. Whether or not she's the god of darkness, I don't think so. Because
Well, the only thing that makes me like a little bit about that is that they talked about that they were brothers,
yeah,
and she's not male.
exactly, yeah. I don't think she is the god of darkness. I think that would be...
Although, granted, if you have unbelievable powers like that, who's to say you can't just be like, I feel like being a lady today.
True. I don't feel like she is, though. I feel like that's too obvious and a bit cliched, which is why people aren't even talking about it like it's a possibility, because it's really not. I don't think they're going to do that. The next line, send in your grim, tear off my limbs, strike me with bolts of lightning, I won't die. Oh, wow. They went there.
They went there.
But they're saying, like, this is what you've put us through, and we're still here, and we're still fighting, kind of thing. The battle seems unwinnable, but all we need's a miracle. We're going up, we'll never be denied. So it's like, this seems really hopeless, but we just need that one thing to sort of give us the edge over our enemies, because right now, Salem has the edge over the good guys. They don't have the edge over her. She's winning, and she's going to win unless they come up with a miracle, basically. So then we have the chorus, can't wish away the dismal days, can't bring back what is gone, won't waste more tears on yesteryears, instead we'll carry on, we'll win for sure, we will endure, and though our goal is far, we'll be the voice to touch the sun, the triumph will be ours. So I really like this chorus. It for the same reasons I like the Let's Just Live chorus, in that it is really hopeful. And, like, they're saying, look, bad crap has happened, we can't do anything about it, there's no point on dwelling on the past, it hurts, it sucks, it happened, but now we have to look to the future and make sure that it doesn't happen again, is kind of what this is saying. And, like, no matter what, we are going to do our best to defeat our enemy. And we're going to make sure that we don't go down fighting, is essentially what this song is about. And I really like that. I'm looking forward to hearing the full version, because I feel like this is going to be the same for me as When It Falls was, in that once I hear the full version, I like it 10 times better. The first few times I heard the Triumph, I was like, I'm not sure. I liked the words, but I wasn't that sure. And because it's short, I'm like, I can't get the feel that the full version will give me. So I'm holding out judgment until I hear the rest of it. But I think it will be a really good theme. It'll be up there with my favourites, definitely. For me, this intro ranks 3rd in all of the volumes. Underneath... I've got Time to Say Goodbye, and then Let's Just Live, and then this one. And then Volume 3, and then Volume 1.
Yeah, I would switch Volume 1 and Volume 3, but yeah.
Volume 3 is your least favourite, isn't it?
Yeah, I
like
the intro visuals and the song were just I didn't really jive with them.
The beginning bit with the tiny bit of piano straight into hard rock, I will never get over how bad that is. Like, I don't like it. It just doesn't sit well with me at all. Yeah. She's a representation of the god of dark, and Ozpin is a representation of the god of light. Yeah, that could be so. Like, it could be a consciousness thing. Again, we know Ozpin is a consciousness thing, but is Salem? I don't know. I feel like Salem isn't human. So I feel like Salem...
But then that comes down to as a thing of like, okay, but Ozpin keeps reincarnating. So does that mean that if they kill Salem, that she'll just reincarnate too? Like,
I don't know, because I don't think Salem's human. I think she's been around for a really, really long time. She just gives off that vibe to me of she is an ancient being. And she has something big to do with the Grimm. Whether she is a Grimm, she could be like the mother of the Grimm, the oldest Grimm, who has evolved so much. She has essentially evolved to be humanoid. Because we know that the Grimm do evolve, and they do learn over a long period of time. So it's possible that she's like the mother of Grimm. She's Eve, essentially, of the Grimm. Which I think is way more likely than God of Darkness. So I'm calling it now. Salem is the mother of the Grimm.
So you think it's sort of a thing where it's like they both need to exist, kind of.
Yeah.
And so maybe she does. Or maybe it's gonna be a thing where they have to go out together.
I hate to reference Supernatural again, but it's really reminding me of... I know you haven't seen season 12, but God and the Darkness. Because in Supernatural, the darkness is God's sister. So, yeah, it's that same kind of thing. Like, Salem is the darkness, and Osborn is the light. So, yeah, she could be the representation, but I feel like it's more likely she's the mother of Grimm.
Yeah. Who knows? There's honestly, like, up until the end of last season, we didn't even think that, like, it was possible.
I feel like that with Salem, like, again with the Supernatural, but like all the vampires and werewolves and that, they all have an alpha. Salem is the alpha Grimm, to me. It's possible that she is a Grimm that has evolved so far. She has evolved to be basically human. And to speak English and all of that sort of crap. And to think intelligently and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we won't know anything for probably years to come.
Yeah, there's so much, like, the theory will change so much.
All we can do
until
is
we know the answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's basically it for the intro. The RWBY episode, there's not a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't think there was really anything to talk about.
It was only 3 minutes long, and I actually thought it would be a little bit more than it was. But I get why it's so short, because essentially they're going to do 14 of them over the entire season. Something that Cory said was interesting to me. He's talking about his vision for the show and then what it ends up looking like. He said it's never exactly what I had in my head, but for good reason. I feel like with a lot of things, creatively, you imagine them as one thing in your head, and what you end up getting is different, but that's usually better, is what he's talking about. And essentially, Cory is the mastermind behind RWBY now. Monty...
yes, it is
Monty's
Cinder.
creation, and he was the mastermind before. Yeah, RWBY's only available for first members, but we are going to talk about it on the podcast every week in case there's anything to talk about.
I didn't really think there was, though.
No,
it was
not
just
particularly. They
not
didn't,
enough to it.
No, they haven't gone deep enough into the volume yet to really show us anything substantial. But yeah, basically, Cory is the driving force behind the production creatively now. Everything comes from him and his mind, and what Monty has told him, obviously, as well. So he's trying to make Monty's vision come to life through his own vision. Of course, his vision and Monty's vision were never going to be the same thing, but, Monty isn't here anymore, and it's because of Cory that the show is even continuing, and because of Rooster Teeth that the show is even continuing. So, yeah, I mean, Cory's doing an awesome job directing the show. I'm really proud of how far it's come, but from Volume 3 to now, even, is like... huge strides, massive strides of improvement in the last 3 volumes. Yeah, I wish Monty could be here to see what the show looks like now. I think he'd be very proud of everybody's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so too. It's I don't know. It's just I know a lot of people are going to have issues with the fact that, like, Cory said that, not that the way he imagined it in his head and the way it turns out are going to be different, because a lot of the times what people they said to comfort people was that, like, Monty told Miles and Cory all the stuff, and, like, I feel like people have issues with that.
Yeah,
just because...
the thing is, I understand what he's saying. Like, he knows he knows essentially where the show has to go to realize Monty's vision. But even, like, when Monty was still making the show, he himself would put things together, and it would never end up being quite like he thought it would be. But that's just a creative thing. Like, even when I make something like a lyric video or an AMV, I have a vision in my head, and then I get to the end and I go, that's not exactly like what I thought it would be, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And obviously, even, like, you plan things to happen and they don't always happen that way. And of course, they have constraints with RWBY, like with screen time. At least now they're starting to push past some of those constraints by getting a couple of extra episodes and a couple longer ones. And the show is going to benefit from that hugely. Yeah, but I feel like Monty would have done things differently. But I feel like he would still be proud of the work everybody's putting in. Yeah, I'm like, it's difficult, you know. It's got to be hard for them to try and realize a vision that wasn't theirs to begin with, and to try carry on something that was started by somebody else. It's a huge weight of responsibility. It's a big torch to pass on, and I feel like Kerry's doing a really good job. Yeah, that's just how filmmaking works, essentially. Yeah, nothing you envision in your head ever looks the same when it's finished. And like, I believe this is a Monty quote, but I think he said, art is never finished, it's simply released. Like, you get to a point where you have no more time. It's got to come out, and that's as good as it's going to get. It always could have been better. Everything can always be better. But at some point, you've got to release it. So, and over time, you know, looking at the very first episode of Volume 1 to the very first episode of Volume 5, just incredible strides in 5 years of time. And with animation too, it's more difficult than it is with live action, because live action is always going to look the way it looks because it's real people. You can improve the CGI, the actors can get better over time, the directors can get better over time. But with animation, it relies completely on like the technology improving and the people using the technology improving and the voice actors improving. Whereas with a show, especially if it's a show that has no CGI, it's always going to look as real as it looks because it's real. Whereas with animation, it can start off looking not that real, and it will get better as time goes on because the technology will get better, the people will get better, and they'll get more time, they'll pour more money into it, and that sort of thing. It's like animation's really reliant on all of that sort of stuff, whereas live action is not so much. Even Supernatural's like CGI and effects after 13 years are not that great. They're better, certainly, but they're still not that great. They don't put a lot of money into it.
That show, they seriously need to just kind of decide enough is enough with that show.
Oh, I know, it's getting a bit old at this point. Yeah, story writing is part of filmmaking, yeah. So yeah, anyway, we have been going nearly 3 hours. We really, really, really need to wrap this up. That was a lot to get through. Big information dump, lots of things going on. But, yeah, so next week, the Boopcast will be a day later. So it won't be Wednesday or Tuesday. It will be Thursday or Wednesday, depending on where you are and what day it is for you right now. But it will be
at the original time.
The original time, yeah. It won't be delayed, hopefully. Because I'll have no intro coming out next Tuesday, so I won't be up until ungodly hours trying to sort out issues. And next week, for guests, we will have Larissa, who is in the chat right now, and we will also have Essie Best Jess from Twitter. And, yeah, hopefully that podcast will be shorter, because we only have one chapter to discuss, and hopefully a bit more will be happening with RWBY as well.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was long. I might have to edit this one a little bit just to cut it down a bit because it's so long. Yeah, exactly. The creative process is a funny thing. You start out envisioning something, and when you get to the end, you're like, that is not at all what I thought it was going to be, because the story takes you somewhere you didn't expect, and your characters take you somewhere you didn't expect. Your own story can surprise you, which I think is a really interesting thing when it comes to writing a story, is that your characters can surprise you. And no, I don't want to cut it in half because that's just too fiddly, but I will do a bit of cutting up of the thing just to make it a tad shorter because it's very long. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next week. Also, our reactions to Chapter 1 will be up when Chapter 2 is made available for first members. So when Chapter 1 goes up on YouTube, our reactions will go up practically at the same time. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Watch Larissa's reaction, my reaction, Cory's reaction. You can check out VidMe below the stream if you want to see my lyric video, or you can go to the Discord. The link is there. The Discord's below the stream as well. And yeah, we will see you next week for episode 17 for Chapter 2. Oh, I'm very excited to see Chapter 2, but I'm also a little nervous.
Oh, I'm excited. I think it'll be good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next week. Goodbye!
Bye!